I seized the moment and sprang to my feet. Pointing at the quiet, expressionless man standing beside Xiao's, I raised my chin with the same arrogance I had possessed in my youth. Your Majesty is far too stingy. Since you intend to reward me, Awan has no desire to become the Crown Prince's secondary consort. I want to marry that man as his principal wife. My clear, decisive voice rang through the palace banquet, silencing the lively hall in an instant. The first person to raise his head in shock was Xiao Si. The smile at the corner of his mouth stiffened, and he stared at me in disbelief. Awan, what nonsense are you talking about? Of course he could not believe it. In my previous life, at this very moment, he had persuaded me to accept his arrangement. He had told me, I married Xu Duchen only because I had no choice. Awan, you are the only person I have ever loved. Back then, when he married someone else as crown princess, I had cried until my eyes were swollen. I could not understand it. I was the childhood companion who had grown up beside him. I was the woman to whom he had sworn his love and promised marriage. I had even spent 3 happy years embroidering my crimson wedding robe, pricking my fingertips so many times that they were covered in tiny needle marks. The noble young ladies of Jinling had laughed at me. You are awfully confident. Aren't you afraid the crown princess will be someone else? When that happens, you may never have a chance to wear that wedding robe. I had merely snorted with pride. Impossible. If he dares deceive me, then I simply will not marry him. It had been a joke, yet it came true. That day, gongs and drums sounded outside as a grand procession arrived with an imperial marriage decree. My heart filled with joy, and I stepped forward to welcome them. Instead, the procession passed the general's manor and turned directly into the neighboring chancellor's residence, heading for the courtyard of Chancellor Su's legitimate daughter, Xu Duchen. The eunuch's shrill voice rang out as he read the decree. Xu Duchen, legitimate daughter of the Xu household, is intelligent, virtuous, gentle, and worthy of the crown prince's affection. She shall be appointed crown princess, crown princess. If she was the crown princess, then what was I? I stood frozen as though someone had struck me over the head. Countless eyes turned toward me, some mocking, others pitying. Either kind was enough to make me the greatest joke in Jinling. They said I was a crude, vain woman who had dreamed of climbing beyond my stations. They said I could not compare with the gentle, magnanimous, dignified, and virtuous Miss Xu. How ridiculous that someone like me had dared imagine becoming crown princess. Those were thoughts they had harbored for a long time. They came from old noble families and had always looked down on the Chen family, newly returned from the northern frontier. Naturally, they also despised me for speaking plainly and acting without restraint. Xu Duchen had once been among the young ladies who teased me, yet she had also treated me better than any of them. She never laughed when I ate 3 bowls of rice, nor did she criticize me for taking strides that were too wide. I once linked arms with her and said with a smile, Sister Xu, you are just like the elder sister I never had. My mother never gave me one, so I found one for myself. The corner of Xu Duchen's mouth curved into a strained smile as she lightly waved the round fan in her hand. I have no younger sister either. From now on, you will always be mine. Then she looked toward a lake glittering with lotus blossoms, and longing flickered through her eyes. The lotus flowers in Jinling are truly beautiful. Only then did I learn that she had not grown up in Jinling. Madame Su had died early, and Chancellor Su later remarried. As the daughter of his late wife, Xu Duchen became an outsider in her own home. Once the mourning period ended, the second wife wept and pressured the chancellor until he used Xu Duchen's health as an excuse to send her to a country estate, where she lived for more than 10 years. Had the second wife not failed to bear a son, and had Xu Duchen not reached marriageable age, no one might ever have brought her home. Like me, she endured exclusion and scorn from Jinling's noble young ladies. I pitied her. Hearing the yearning in her voice, I immediately said, Do you like them? If you do, Awan will pick one for you. Of course I do. Xu Duchen laughed, then hesitated. But the lake is deep. If you go down there alone, I am afraid. What is there to fear? I followed my father through battles on the frontier. This small danger is nothing. I did not want her to worry, so in the end I said, Hold my hand. I will pick the flower and you can keep me safe. Only then did she nod. She looked no different from any elder sister worried about her younger sister. That was why I never expected her to release my hand. A frightened scream rang out, followed by a heavy splash. I stared in disbelief, then leaped into the water without hesitation. Sister Xu. She struggled in the lake, but just as I was about to reach her, she suddenly kicked me away. Before I could react, another hand reached through the icy water. My eyes met Xiao Si's. Almost instinctively, he pulled Xu Duchen protectively into his arms. When he carried her ashore, the surrounding young ladies rushed over. Trembling in Xiaoxi's embrace, her face pale with fear, Xu Duchen looked at me and choked out, "I do not know how I offended my younger sister Awan so deeply that she would try to harm me. Only then did I understand. She had never truly liked me. We were both outsiders shunned by Jinling's noblewomen, but to enter their circle, she needed someone whom everyone could attack together. I was the perfect choice." After the incident at the lake, I became known throughout the capital as the Chen family's savage shrew, a vicious and domineering woman who had pushed someone into the water. Everyone despised me, while Xu Duchen became an object of sympathy. Even Xiaos looked at me with disappointment. "Awan, you should apologize to Miss Xu." At that moment I remembered asking him once, "Everyone says I am coarse. Do you dislike me too?" He had been painting my portrait. He smiled and answered, "You are frank and warm-hearted, Awan, and you once saved my life on the frontier. If anyone should fear being disliked, it is me." Xiaoxi had not always been crown prince. 3 years earlier he had merely been an overlooked prince sent to command troops at the border. The battlefield was dangerous, and the military situation chaotic. He nearly died several times. On the worst occasion, he fell from his horse amid thousands of soldiers, and I, who had accompanied my father on campaign, dragged him out of the encirclement. Tilting my head, I had asked curiously, "Are you the newly arrived prince everyone has been talking about?" He had just escaped death among clashing blades. When he raised his head and saw me, he remembered that moment for the rest of his life. Later, with the Chen family's wholehearted support, he established himself, earned great military merit, and was named crown prince. At the time, he held my hand and said gently, "Awan, come back to Jinling with me. Everything there is wonderful, but the best thing will be seeing you become my crown princess." Yet he lied. He looked down on me, refused to believe me, married another woman as crown princess, and then wanted me to become his secondary consort. While he celebrated his wedding, I endured endless ridicule. Nearly frantic, I wanted only to find him and demand the truth, but my parents feared something might happen to me and confined me to the manor. The crown prince's wedding music was deafening that day. The horns carried all the way into my room. At last I could bear it no longer. I smashed the window, jumped into a muddy ditch, and stumbled all the way to the crown prince's residence. I arrived just as the bride stepped from her sedan chair. Dressed in brilliant red wedding robes, Xiaoxi smiled radiantly as he carefully supported the woman beside him toward the ceremonial hall. I went numb. A breeze passed and cold seeped into my bones. Mud clung thickly to my clothes, while the people around me stared with ridicule and curiosity. The servants from my family finally caught up. Fearing I would make a scene, some restrained me, while others urged, "Young lady, please come home with us." The commotion was so great that Xiaos paused just as he was about to cross the threshold. From behind her red bridal veil, Xu Duchen said softly, "Is that my younger sister Awan? Your Highness, please go and see her. Do not worry about me." This marriage was arranged only to preserve my honor, so I took Awan's place. It is only natural that she is angry. I dare ask for nothing more. What right does she have to be angry? Xiaos blurted out. During that period we had argued countless times. No matter how I explained, he refused to believe me. So many people witnessed it. Could every one of them have falsely accused you? Awan, be good. Stop lying. I have already pleaded with Miss Su on your behalf, and she has agreed to forgive you. But who needed her forgiveness? Furious, I charged at him, rammed my head into him, struck him, and cursed him to leave. He, too, was enraged by how I had changed. He was disappointed that I had supposedly learned the cruel schemes of women in the inner courtyard. As we fought again and again, he began running around for Xu Duchen, while I stubbornly refused to lower my head. I once believed we would remain angry for a long time but eventually reconcile. Then the palace issued the decree formally appointing the crown princess. While Xiaoxi enjoyed the sweetness of newlywed life hand in hand with another woman, he never looked back. "Let us wait until the wedding is over," he said, holding Xu Duchen's hand with a sigh. "Her honor was damaged because of Awan. If I abandon her now for Awan, how much more slander will she endure?" I watched everything in silence and suddenly stopped struggling. From then on, everyone said I had changed. I threw away the wedding robe I had embroidered for 3 years. I stopped mentioning Xiaoxi, refused to read his letters, and no longer caused a disturbance over his marriage. My parents sighed with relief, though they regretted that the match had finally ended. They planned to find another marriage for me. After all, they had never believed their daughter capable of ruining another woman's honor. Before they could act, Xiaoxi climbed through my window. He looked at me and asked, "Awan, tomorrow I will ask father to grant us a marriage. Become my secondary consort, will you?" I struck and cursed him until his face was swollen, calling him shameless. The tears I had suppressed for so long finally overflowed. Xiao Si, you married another woman and now want me as your secondary consort. What do you take me for? What gives you the right to humiliate me like this? You want me to become a concubine and steal another woman's husband. I may be hot-tempered and overbearing. I may not be good at embroidery, but I have never committed an evil act and I have never wronged you. What gives you the right? He seized my hand and said quietly, Duchen's honor was damaged because of you. If I do not marry her, she will be sent to a temple and spend the rest of her life in lonely seclusion, with only prayer lamps and the clack of a wooden fish for company. You will also bear a ruined reputation and may never enter the imperial family. Awan, everything I am doing is for you. He and Shu Duchen had already agreed. She would enter the Eastern Palace and be crown princess in name only. Beyond that title, she would have nothing. Though I would be the secondary consort, that too was merely a title. In his heart, I alone would be his true wife. More importantly, he said, Father already fears the Chen family's power. He will never allow you to marry outside the imperial clan, and if you openly resist the decree, then the Chen family your parents. He did not finish. For the first time I truly saw the man before me. My entire body went weak and I staggered backward. In the end, I still became Xiaoxi's secondary consort. He was overjoyed. A secondary consort was still a concubine and could not use red in the wedding, yet my ceremony was lavish. Perhaps knowing he had wronged me, Xiaoxi continued indulging me after I entered the Eastern Palace, even as my temperament changed and I became increasingly domineering. Only Su Duchen remained the same gentle on the outside, hiding a blade within. She repeated her old methods, taunting me to my face and sowing discord behind my back. She expected me to explain and defend myself as before. Instead, I only sneered. Sometimes I slapped her, sometimes I cursed her openly. Since our masks had already been torn away, we might as well tear them off completely. If I could not live in peace, neither would she. Eventually, she would run to Xiaoxi with disheveled hair, clutching her face and weeping weakly. It is all my fault. I angered my younger sister Awan and deserved punishment. But she was crown princess. How could a secondary consort be allowed to strike and curse her whenever she wished? I would stare stubbornly at Xiaoxi and refuse to bow my head. At worst, he would once again blame everything on me. But this time, he did not. He glanced at the sobbing Shu Duchen's side, then walked over and pulled me into his arms. Awan, I believe you. For a fleeting moment, I thought Xiaoxi might still love me. Perhaps he had not lied. Later, with the support of the Chen and Su families, he ascended the throne. I was granted the rank of imperial noble consort and received favor beyond compare. As emperor, he personally removed my hairpins. Even Shu Duchen, by then the empress, had to offer tea to me herself. All the favor of the 6 palaces seemed to rest upon me alone. Everyone in the harem envied me, while the officials of the court hated me, and called me a wicked consort who would ruin the realm. My arrogance was unmatched beneath heaven. Perhaps I would have believed in his love, if he had not later exiled my entire family with his own decree, stripped me of my title, and confined me to the cold palace for the rest of my life while the world applauded. Everyone said the Chen family had grown too powerful. His Majesty had merely pretended to be bewitched by me, temporarily allowing his beloved empress to suffer so he could follow the current and destroy us at the proper moment. That was the truth. In the cold palace, Xiaoxi tormented me again and again. No matter how I struggled or wept, he said with hatred, does it hurt? You oppressed Duchen for so many years. This is the debt you owe. Chen Wan, you had better beg me. Then I may spare your life and let you spend the rest of it atoning. So that was how it had been. Each time, Shu Duchen had endured with a strained smile and stepped back. His heart had softened toward her. Yet when I cried, raged, and lost control, why had he never once asked whether I had suffered some injustice? All those years of favor and affection had been an act. He feared the Chen family and wanted us to lower our guard so he could destroy us in one stroke. Now he wanted me to remain in the cold palace, endure every humiliation, bow my head, beg him, and cling to life. But I refused. In the agony of that final night, I knocked over the candle. Before Xiaoxi's shocked eyes, I wrapped my arms around him and pulled him with me into the flames, crying and laughing at once. Xiaoxi, I do not want a life like this. I do not want it. The fire caught the bed curtains and surged upward. He should have been furious. He hated me, and I was trying to drag him to death with me, yet he was not. As the flames climbed his clothes, the hatred in his eyes gave way to stunned disbelief. He stared at me as though he could not believe I truly meant to take him down with me. He had no more time to think. The roof beam above us swayed and began to fall. At the last instant he came back to himself, cried, "Awan!" and threw himself over me. A heavy crash followed, along with the sharp sound of breaking bone. Xiaoxi shielded me with his own body, yet I kept laughing as Shuduchen was swallowed by the sea of flames as well. Watching them meet the same wretched end as I did, I believed all three of us would perish together. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the palace banquet, where the emperor intended to reward the Chen family's great service by making me Xiaoxi's secondary consort. In my previous life, I knew the emperor feared the Chen family and wanted to bind me to the imperial clan as a hostage. If I refused the decree, he would only become more convinced that my family harbored rebellious intentions. For my parents and my clan, I had knelt beneath Xiaoxi's expectant gaze, bowed in gratitude, and accepted. I became his secondary consort, then his imperial noble consort. Half my life was spent amid glory, the other half was spent in torment. This time, the emperor said, the Chen family has guarded the frontier for many years and rendered great service in assisting the crown prince. Such merit deserves a reward. He smiled kindly like an affectionate elder and looked down at me. Ah Wan, what do you think of becoming Ah Si's secondary consort? The Son of Heaven's authority was frightening even when he showed no anger. He called it a reward, but it was still an imperial command that could not be resisted. Xiaoxi looked at me with unconcealed delight. Ah Wan, why have you not thanked father? I did not thank him. I did not even spare Xiaoxi another glance, as if I had never heard him. Instead, I stood first and pointed toward the quiet, expressionless man beside him. I lifted my chin with the same boldness I had possessed as a girl. Your Majesty is too stingy. Since this is meant to be a reward, Ah Wan does not want to become a secondary consort. Ah Wan wants to marry that man as his principal wife. It was an outrageously audacious act. Anyone else might have been condemned for disrespect before the throne. But I was Chen Wan, the only daughter of a military general. I had grown up on the frontier and returned to Jinling only recently. I had never learned the elaborate etiquette of the capital. Such conduct was entirely believable from me. Looking up at the emperor, I asked with a smile, "What is the matter? Is your Majesty so reluctant to part with the third prince that you cannot grant Ah Wan's wish?" Only then did everyone in the hall recover and turn toward the man standing in the shadowed corner beside Xiaoxi. His clothes were plain and he was silent and reserved. He was none other than Xiaoqi, the third prince, the least conspicuous and least favored of all the emperor's sons. The lively banquet fell into a strange silence. The first to raise his head in shock was still Xiaoxi. The smile on his lips froze. Ah Wan, what nonsense are you talking about? It was no nonsense. Had Xiaoxi not told me himself that the emperor feared the Chen family's excessive power and wished to marry me into the imperial household, but did not want to grant me too high a position? Making me the principal consort of an unfavored prince would solve both problems at once. The rank of the crown prince's secondary consort was beneath the dignity of the Chen family. After all, a secondary consort was still a concubine. Making the daughter of a meritorious minister a concubine would chill the hearts of the court, even if it were intended as a warning. Moreover, Xiaoxi would almost certainly inherit the throne. I had an old attachment to him. If I remained at his side and someday became a beauty blamed for ruining the state, the current emperor could hardly feel secure. It was different if I became the third prince's principal consort. That was a proper marriage and would not insult the Chen family. Xiaoqi's mother had been a lowborn maid who died early. He was the least favored prince and had no powerful backing. With such a son-in-law, even if the Chen family truly wished to overturn the court, we would not possess enough power to do so. I had been too young in my previous life to understand this before Xiaoxi coaxed, threatened, and confused me into accepting the position of secondary consort. But I had now lived through half a lifetime. How could I walk the same road again? The emperor's eyes brightened as soon as he understood the advantage. Under ordinary circumstances, he would eventually have devised this solution himself. Xiaoxi had merely moved first and asked that I be made his secondary consort. Because he was the emperor's favorite son, the emperor had agreed on the assumption that I would consent as well. Now I wanted to marry another of his sons. Father, Ah Wan is only angry with me and speaking recklessly. Her words cannot be taken seriously. Xiaoxi sprang to his feet in panic. He did not even seem to hear Shu Duchen call anxiously, "Your Highness." He looked at me and asked desperately, "Is that not so, Ah Wan? We already agreed last night. Your Highness should speak carefully." Without looking at him, I stared straight ahead and said coolly, "I have been recovering from illness and have not stepped outside the general's manor for days. My parents and every servant in the residence can testify to that. How could I have discussed anything with your Highness last night?" I paused, then finally turned toward his frightened face before looking at Shu Duchen beside him. She met my gaze for a moment, then lowered her eyes guiltily. Furthermore, all of Jinling now says the crown prince and crown princess are loving newlyweds, deeply devoted to one another. If I intruded at this time, at best I would be deliberately damaging their marriage. At worst, the crown prince is the heir to the realm. His household affairs are affairs of state. If I caused discord in the Eastern Palace, would that not disturb the order of the court? Then I knelt before the emperor with fear on my face. Your Majesty, even if Awan grew up on the frontier and is unruly and headstrong, I would never dare bear such a grave crime. Every word was forceful and reasonable. Even the Jinling nobles who had always despised me were astonished. In their eyes, I was merely a coarse young woman who acted rashly. They had never imagined I could speak with such clarity. Even Xiaos could not refute me, because everything I said had been created by his own actions. He was the one who married Shu Duchen as crown princess under the pretense of compensating her. He was also the one who did not want his new bride mocked for being neglected, so he publicly held her hand and displayed deep affection. As a result, rumors spread that I had not been chosen and had foolishly dreamed of climbing too high. Now I was following his wishes. I had become sensible and generous. What right did he have to feel hurt? No, that is not it. Xiao realized he had miscalculated and hurriedly shook his head. Awan, you cannot refuse to marry me. I only. He could hardly admit that he had refused to believe I was innocent, given my position to Su Duchen, and then tried to frighten and deceive me into willingly becoming his concubine. I sneered. As I had hoped, the emperor had already been persuaded. He immediately interrupted Xiaoxi. The crown prince has only just married. It is indeed inconvenient for him to take another consort. Then the emperor looked at me seriously, no longer treating me with casual disregard. Awan, you keep pointing at Qi and demanding to marry him. But have you asked whether he is willing? He would not dare refuse. At the mention of Xiao Qi, I turned toward him. The quiet man still seemed stunned by my words. When I looked directly at him, he did not evade my gaze. His lashes fluttered repeatedly, and a faint flush appeared on his sun-darkened face. Awan, he stammered, almost as though surrendering. That had always been his attitude toward me. He yielded and never opposed me. Whatever I said, he believed was right. Whatever I did, he silently followed. I had always burned like a flame. I had never burned him. I had only illuminated him. Yet even that light had once been merely an accidental glow cast upon him while he stood beside Xiaoxi. I met Xiaoqi only after following Xiaoxi back to Jinling. As a general's daughter, I had heard of his reputation. On the journey home, I once asked Xiaoxi curiously, I heard your third brother is a brilliant commander. He drove back the northern tribes. What does he look like? Whatever his appearance, he must be a great hero. There was no admiration in Xiaoxi's eyes. He only laughed faintly. Him? He is a prince. Fighting for the realm is his duty. It hardly makes him a hero. In Xiaoxi's eyes, his third brother was not worth noticing. Few people in the imperial city valued Xiaoqi either. The first time I saw him, Xiaoxi had been summoned away by the emperor. Nearby, a chief eunuch complained to Xiaoqi with open displeasure. Forgive my bluntness, your highness, but your horse eats far too much. 4 meals a day are bad enough, and it also drinks 5 buckets of water. Where are we supposed to find so much feed? Cutting a few meals is perfectly reasonable. Across from him stood the broad back of a tall, powerfully built man. He lowered his head slightly and explained with complete seriousness. Jue Yun is a warhorse. It has followed me on campaigns north and south for many years, so naturally it eats more than an ordinary horse. I originally planned to care for it myself, but you said that because I am a prince, the horse is imperial property and must be placed in the palace stables. Yet after I brought it here, it has not been fed properly. He wished only to reason with them. The eunuch cried out theatrically instead. Oh, is your highness accusing us servants of neglect? No matter how valuable that horse is, can it compare with the crown prince's treasured mount, or the 2 ponies belonging to Princess Minglan? Those horses require the finest fodder, so naturally they must be served first. Your highness is noble. Please do not make matters difficult for humble servants like us. We cannot bear such responsibility. They spoke as if completely justified. Xiaoqi's mother had died early. Because of her low birth, the emperor had never cared for her, and that dislike extended to her son. Xiaoqi was a skilled commander, but in Jinling, far from the frontier, what use was military ability? It mattered less than a petty official's talent for saying a few pleasing words. No wonder the eunuch dared show contempt. He assumed that Xiaoqi, quiet and gentle, could do nothing to him. That was almost true. Xiaoqi stood in silence with a faint frown. Before he could act, someone kicked the eunuch from behind and sent him sprawling face-first onto the ground. A young woman's clear, cold voice rang out. You insolent servant! His Majesty just told my father that when soldiers defend the border, their warhorses are of the greatest importance and must never be neglected. How did those words become, in your mouth, a claim that a warhorse is worth less than a few pampered stable animals? Xiaoqi raised his head. On the steps stood a young woman in a pink skirt, hands on her hips and brows raised in anger. She showed no mercy as she kicked the eunuch who had been so arrogant moments earlier. Even if he is unfavored, he is still a prince. It is not your place to bully him. More importantly, he is a hero who fought for the realm. Did we risk our lives so useless parasites? Like you could enjoy comfort while loyal men suffered every humiliation? The pearl strands at her ears swayed with her movements, and his heart seemed to move with them. Then the terrified eunuch cried, Miss Chen! Miss Chen! Spare me! Chen Wan, the legitimate daughter of the general of the northern garrison, had grown up at the frontier. She acted freely, and cared little for rigid etiquette. She had once defended a city beside her father and sworn not to retreat. Though born a noble young lady, she possessed an iron spirit. She was also rumored to be the future crown princess who would marry the eldest prince Xiaoxi. The sudden pounding of Xiaoqi's heart fell silent. In his confusion, he heard his elder brother Xiaoxi hurry over and call gently, Awa. By the time Xiaoqi returned to himself, Xiaoxi had scolded the eunuch and turned to soothe me with helpless amusement. I have punished him. Stop making trouble. I was not making trouble, I immediately argued. Pointing at Xiaoqi, I said, even apart from the mistreatment of his warhorse, that servant dared bully your younger brother. Of course I had to defend him. Everything I did was for you. Then I waved at Xiaoqi. He was still staring at me. I smiled and said, you must be the third prince. I am Chenwan, your future sister-in-law. Xiaoqi was quiet and easily forgotten in a crowd. Because I regarded him as my future brother-in-law, I often spoke on his behalf so he would not be left isolated. That was why he listened to me more than anyone. I once told him, I treat you so well, so after I marry into the Eastern Palace, if I argue with your elder brother, you must take my side. At the time, my wedding robe was nearly finished. I bent over every stitch, filled with happiness at the thought of marrying Xiaoxi. Because of that happiness, I tried to treat everyone around him kindly. I never looked up. So much time passed that I thought Xiaoqi had quietly left without hearing me. A breeze stirred the red silk in my hands. Then a very soft but utterly resolute answer came from above me. All right, he always kept his word. In my previous life after Su Duchen's accusation, only my parents and Xiaoqi believed me. I had been upset for a long time, furious that Xiaoxi, the elder brother, understood right and wrong less than the younger brother, everyone dismissed as simple and foolish. When Xiaoqi learned that Xiaoxi intended to marry Su Duchen and leave me as the laughingstock of the realm, he went to speak with him. By the time I arrived, Xiaoqi was crouched in a corner, dejected. He looked up at me apologetically, blood at the corner of his mouth. I hurriedly offered him a handkerchief, but he merely lowered his head in silence. I assumed he had fought Xiaoxi and lost. The next night proved me wrong. Xiaoxi climbed over the wall with a limp and came to ask me to become his secondary consort. Young and inexperienced, I was frightened and deceived into agreeing for the sake of my parents and the Chen family. After the old emperor died, Xiaoqi, unfavored as ever, was granted the most distant and desolate fief. I could not see him off. Xiaoxi said that, as the crown prince's secondary consort during a chaotic succession, I could not leave the residence because of safety and propriety. Xiaoqi seemed angry with me for not coming. For years afterward, Xiaoxi never summoned him back to the capital to report on his fief. I never received a single letter from him. I heard only that he lived peacefully in his territory, and never married. That was good. If he had no woman he loved, then using the affection he had once shown me to draw him into my revenge would not break another innocent woman's heart. So I looked directly at him in the banquet hall and asked, Xiaoqi, I need a husband. Are you willing to marry me? Consider it repayment for the kindness I once showed you long ago. I knew he would not refuse. His face had been filled with embarrassment and confusion, but when he met my eyes and heard the blunt question, he froze only briefly. Then he suppressed his shyness, became solemn and nodded with great seriousness. I am willing my foot! Xiaoxi roared and hurled the wine cup in his hand at Xiaoqi. Crown Prince, the emperor thundered. Xiaoqi turned aside, and the wine cup shattered across the floor. Xiaoxi was so furious that he forgot all the etiquette expected of the heir. Pointing at his brother, he snarled, You are merely the son of a low-born maid. What right do you have to marry her? Do not think I do not know the filthy thoughts in your heart. You covet the woman who should be your own sister-in-law. You are utterly shameless. I frowned. Xiaoqi had truly gone mad and was speaking nonsense, yet his words no longer mattered. Xiaoqi stood straight, refusing to retreat even half a step no matter how Xiaoqi insulted him. That was enough. I bowed before the emperor. Your Majesty, Awan has made her decision. Please grant this marriage. I will not become the crown prince's secondary consort. I wish to marry the third prince as his principal wife. Every sound vanished. Xiaoqi stood rigid as though immobilized. Shu Duchun, who had begun stepping forward to intervene, stopped as well. Xiaoqi said nothing, but he did not hesitate. The instant I knelt, he dropped firmly to his knees beside me. The emperor looked down from his throne and finally sighed. Then he declared the palace banquet over and issued an oral decree. The crown prince Xiaoqi behaved improperly before the throne and spoke without restraint. He is confined to the Eastern Palace for 1 month. The third prince, Xiaoqi, is upright in character and has earned repeated military merit. He shall receive 300 li of territory in Qi and be granted the title Prince of Qi. Chen Wan, legitimate daughter of the general of the northern garrison, is gentle and virtuous, beautiful in appearance and wise in character. She is granted in marriage to Xiaoqi and appointed princess consort of Qi. The wedding shall take place 1 month from today. Everyone said the emperor was warning the Chen family. The Chens were military people who knew how to wield weapons and ride horses. The old noble houses looked down on us, but our achievements were renowned throughout the court. My father held a high second-rank office. His only daughter could reasonably become crown princess, or marry into a ducal or marquis household, or at least become the principal wife of a legitimate heir from a distinguished clan. Only as a last resort should she become a secondary consort. How could she instead marry an unfavored prince and suffer in a distant barren fief? After hearing the decree, my parents worried for me. My mother held me and wept. You cannot marry him. Awan, if His Majesty truly fears the Chen family, I will have your father resign. You must not sacrifice yourself for us. My father frowned and sighed. He seemed to have reached the same decision. I shook my head. Father may resign, but what about my maternal uncles, paternal uncles, cousins, and clan brothers? They all serve at court and belong to the Chen family. Must every one of them resign until the entire clan becomes commoners? And why should we? The Chen family has served the throne loyally for generations. Why must all that loyalty turn to smoke merely because the man on the throne harbors some suspicion and caution? We have done nothing wrong. Why should we be denied even a peaceful end? I remembered how the Chen family had been purged and exiled in my former life. I would not accept it, and I would not repeat the same mistake. So father, mother, I am willing to marry the third prince, I said slowly. I do not feel wronged. My parents opened their mouths, then stopped. They had assumed I was forced at the banquet and had never expected me to admit that I had requested the marriage myself. But why Xiaoqi? My mother asked. Qi is far away and bitterly cold. How could you endure it? The thought angered her again. Xiaoqi is a faithless wretch. At the frontier, he pretended to cherish my daughter. Once he reached Jinling, he forgot the old for the new and let her suffer every rumor. The Chen family helped him so much, yet he repaid kindness with betrayal. My father also cursed the treachery of human hearts. I answered calmly. Then take it back. Take back what? My mother began, then stopped and exchanged a look with my father. What does he have today that was not built on the Chen family's support? We should reclaim all of it, I continued. He broke faith first, and I will not marry him. From now on, the two sides have no relationship and no entanglement. Everything the Chen family once gave him should naturally be withdrawn. But if we take it back, then he... My mother broke off, then slapped her thigh. Exactly. Since there is no relationship, why should he keep what belongs to us? My father thought further ahead. But he is still the crown prince and the future emperor. If we withdraw our support and offend him, he may bear a grudge against the Chen family after he ascends the throne. I looked up at him. Father, if we do not offend him, will he not still resent the Chen family? In my former life, I had become his secondary consort, and the Chen family had devoted all its strength to placing him on the throne. Yet in the end, he still purged us one by one. Since he will resent us whether we offend him or not, we might as well oppose him to the end. As for his future accession, we simply must not let him remain crown prince. Just as I finished speaking, a maid hurried in. The third prince has arrived, Xiaoqi. Half a month had passed since the decree. For propriety, we had not met again. I had assumed our next meeting would be on our wedding day, so I had no idea why he had come. My parents and I went out. The street before the manor was crowded with spectators. Some were mocking and others curious, but most had come to watch a spectacle. Since my betrothal to Xiaoqi, all of Jinling had laughed that I failed to climb onto the highest branch and could only marry an unfavored prince. Then they saw countless chests tied with red silk being carried into the general's manor, one after another, and everyone stared in disbelief. At the head of the procession were 2 living wild geese. It was spring. The migrating geese had long since flown away. Where had he found a living pair? Even the crown prince's wedding had used lacquered wooden geese. Hoofbeats approached. Everyone turned. Xiaoqi sat upon his warhorse in formal ceremonial clothes. The garments were not extravagant, but they were impeccably neat and solemn. His gaze rested briefly on me, then moved to my parents. Without hesitation, he dismounted. The 2 living geese were presented first. Then he knelt calmly and spoke in a firm voice. General Chen, Madam Chen. For half a month, I traveled day and night for more than 100 li to hunt this living pair of geese as a token of constancy. Today I have come formally to offer betrothal gifts and ask for the hand of Miss Chen Wan. His deep, steady voice carried clearly enough for even those who had come to mock us to hear every word. Strictly speaking, none of this was necessary. Our marriage had been decreed by the emperor. Ordinarily, the palace would arrange everything, including the betrothal gifts. They needed only to be respectable, not extraordinarily generous. Xiaoqi could have accepted what the palace provided. He did not need to prepare the gifts himself, arrive in such ceremony or hunt living geese as a symbol of lifelong fidelity. Yet he had done all of it. For the first time since my rebirth, I felt flustered. You disappeared without a word for half a month, I murmured. You traveled hundreds of li merely to hunt these 2 geese? During his absence from Jinling, someone had deliberately asked Xu Duchen about him at a flower-viewing banquet. She merely waved her round fan and smiled as though answering casually. Third brother has a straightforward temperament. I suppose he went away to clear his mind. By calling him straightforward, she implied that he could not tolerate humiliation. By saying he went away to clear his mind, she suggested that even Xiaoqi was unwilling to marry me. The noblewomen laughed. They made such a fuss about the general's precious daughter. In the end, the crown prince rejected her, and even the 3rd prince does not value her. She is still nothing but a coarse woman. My mother had argued furiously with them. That was another reason she and my father opposed the match. Now, when I questioned Xiaoqi, an awkward smile appeared on his resolute face. He answered honestly, according to the traditional marriage customs known as the 3 letters and 6 rights, the betrothal gifts must include a pair of geese. Awan is marrying me. She should not be short-changed. He had nearly emptied his entire household, sending chest after chest as my betrothal gifts. Something struck hard against my heart. I stood frozen, looking silently at the man kneeling before me. I suddenly remembered the banquet. After Xiaoqi said he was willing, Xiaoxi had shouted that he was the low-born son of a maid and had no right to marry me. He accused Xiaoqi of coveting the woman, who should have been his sister-in-law. Sister-in-law. Xiaoqi's voice pulled me from my thoughts. I looked up and realized my parents were already smiling as they helped him rise. My older cousin and his wife had also come to assist. My cousin-in-law laughed and teased him for staring at me so intently that he had lost awareness of everything else. A smile filled his eyes. My heart pounded like a drum. After Xiaoqi's grand betrothal procession, the marriage that had already shaken Jinling became an even greater topic of conversation. This time, however, the talk was no longer mocking. People praised Prince Qi for his thoughtfulness. The gifts entered the Chen residence in an unbroken line, while the Chen family prepared an equally generous dowry for its only daughter. The dowry carts stretched for 10 li in an unbroken line. The only unhappy household was probably the crown prince's residence. 3 days before my wedding, Xiaoxi dared climb over the wall of my courtyard and block my path. His face was filled with hurt. Awan. He had not lived easily during that month. His distress was not caused by the confinement itself. What tormented him was that the emperor no longer trusted him. After the banquet, the emperor had concluded that Xiaoxi could not distinguish public duty from private emotion. Xiaoxi was desperate to earn merit and regain imperial favor. Then he discovered that I had ordered the Chen family's men withdrawn from his service. He could not understand it. Awan, why will you not believe me? Is it only because I asked you to become my secondary consort? I had no choice. You know that even without Duchen, you could not have become my principal wife. Though your title would have been secondary consort, everything in the residence, your food, clothing, ceremony, and treatment, would have followed the standard of the principal consort. Why are you still so stubborn? Are you still angry with me? As he had countless times before, he stepped forward and reached for my hand, trying to explain until we reconciled. This time, I quietly took 2 steps back and let his hand close on empty air. I spoke calmly despite the pain in his eyes. I do not understand what your highness means. The men recalled by the Chen family were veteran soldiers once assigned to protect Your Highness on the dangerous frontier. That was the Chen family's duty. Now that Your Highness has returned safely to Jinling, you no longer require their protection. It is entirely reasonable for the Chen family to summon them home. What right does Your Highness have to question us? But, I cut him off impatiently. But what? Does Your Highness mean that the Chen family once silently allowed you to command them as you pleased? That had been true only because my family believed I would marry him. They had spared neither men nor strength to support their future son-in-law. Now he and I had no relationship. The Chen family had no reason to continue sacrificing for him. If he insisted on keeping those soldiers while the emperor still lived, then as crown prince he would be retaining a private force. Would that not look like faction building and the secret raising of troops? I sneered inwardly, feeling only bitterness. He had begun calculating long ago. He claimed he had no choice, yet openly went to the chancellor's residence to seek Xu Duchen's hand. He claimed he loved only me, yet urged me to accept concubinage. He wanted the civil officials' support through the Xu family and the military support through the Chen family. He wanted every advantage. Unfortunately, I was no longer the inexperienced Chenwan whom he could coax and deceive. Xiaoxi could not outargue me. At last his face turned pale and a bitter smile touched his lips. Awan, you truly are still blaming me. But I have my own unavoidable difficulties. For the first time in either life, he spoke honestly instead of evading the truth. Serving a ruler is like living beside a tiger. My father named me crown prince, but the empress died early without leaving a son. That means every one of my brothers has a chance to seize my position. To avoid being pulled down, I must plan for everything. I must guard against my brothers, stabilize those who follow me, and serve my father with the utmost care. The Chen family's military support alone is not enough. I can only marry the chancellor's daughter to gain the chancellor's influence among the civil officials. But Wan, I never intended to betray you. His eyes reddened as he promised hoarsely, I have thought it through. Even if you enter as secondary consort, I will never let you suffer again, and I will never doubt you. If Duchen conflicts with you after you enter the Eastern Palace, I will stand only on your side. He stepped forward again, stubbornly reaching for my wrist. Awan, I have only you. You cannot betray me, and you cannot leave me. My answer was a sharp slap. I shoved him back. You have lost your mind. I pointed at him without fear. I am the future princess consort of Qi granted in marriage by His Majesty himself. I am your future younger sister-in-law. Xiaoxi, if you dare touch me, are you not afraid the whole realm will despise you? The emperor's decree had already been spoken, and the wedding was near. Did Xiaoxi intend to defy an imperial command? Perhaps his repeated failures had driven him beyond reason. Yes, I have gone mad, he shouted. You were supposed to be my wife, we swore ourselves to each other, yet now you are abandoning me to marry someone else. How could I remain sane? Awan, you cannot marry him. I will ask father to postpone the wedding. Give me more time, I will bring you back to my side, I answered with a punch to his face. A cry of alarm came from the courtyard. The third prince? Then another blow landed. No one could stop Xiaoqi. The secret guards outside the courtyard had already been knocked aside. My personal maid had been leading him in and now stood anxiously between us, while Xiaoqi struck Xiaoxi again and again. Once Xiaoxi recognized him, his eyes turned cold and he fought back. The sight of two imperial brothers fighting left my parents, who rushed over after hearing the commotion, stunned. Crown Prince, my father roared. Xiaoxi's raised fist stopped in midair. Xiaoqi, his face cold, did not stop. One final strike sent Xiaoxi to the ground. My father said icily, Your Highness entered the Chen residence without an invitation or permission. My daughter is about to marry. If word spreads that the crown prince secretly entered her private courtyard, what will the world think? He was truly furious. When Xiaoxi broke his promise and married another woman, making me the joke of Jinling, the Chen family had been unable to object because no marriage contract had ever formally existed between the two families. Xiaoxi had the right to marry whomever he chose. But now I was about to marry Xiaoqi, and Xiaoxi had still climbed into my courtyard in secret. Fortunately, everyone present was family. If outsiders had seen the crown prince in my private courtyard, what would have become of my reputation? My father's voice grew colder. I cannot understand how the Chen family has offended Your Highness so deeply that you repeatedly seek to harm my daughter. Please leave. Tomorrow at court, I will personally ask His Majesty for an explanation. It was an unmistakable order to depart, and the mention of the emperor finally restrained Xiaoxi. One of his secret guards murmured, Your Highness. Xiaoxi withdrew his gaze, then looked at Xiaoqi, who stubbornly shielded me, and laughed coldly. You are merely an unfavored prince. Do you truly imagine yourself noble enough for her? She is a treasured daughter. Marrying you will only force her to suffer beside you. Today she marries you because she is angry with me. Later, when you fail to protect her and she has endured enough hardship, she will awaken and return to me. Xiaoqi stared at him like a young wolf and yielded not half a step. The smugness on Xiaoxi's face slowly turned cold. You do not deserve her. Know your place. One day Awan will still be mine. He swept his sleeve and left. The courtyard became strangely quiet. Everyone withdrew one by one until only Xiaoqi and I remained. Cold wind stirred around us. I held out a handkerchief. His lashes trembled and he looked at me. I carefully wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, behaving as though I had not heard a word Xiaoxi said. There are only a few days before the wedding, I scolded. If your injuries do not heal and you embarrass me, I will not let you through the door. I care greatly about appearances, so you are not allowed to disobey me. He stood still while I awkwardly tended him and chattered about trivial things. I told him I had embroidered a new wedding robe, though it was still ugly. The mandarin ducks looked more like two ordinary ducks. I told him the geese he brought were healthy, but ate so much that they had become round as piglets. Then I looked up and smiled. Why did you come today? Dusk descended, and the sunset lay across his shoulders and my face. I looked up at him while he looked down at me. His calloused hand, roughened by years of war, paused. Then, as though gathering all his courage, he slowly raised it and held the hand with which I had been wiping his wound. At last he stopped pretending to be stubbornly mute. I discovered there was one betrothal gift I had not given you, he said in a low voice. Then your cousin-in-law told me that you had caught a chill, hated the bitter medicine, and kept hiding so you would not have to drink it. Only then did he dare meet my eyes directly. His voice carried wounded grievance. I bought some candied fruit for you. He had arrived, seen something wrong in the courtyard, and immediately rushed in to fight Xiao's. It was rare indeed. Everyone knew the third prince followed rules more carefully than anyone, and had a gentle temperament. Once he believed a boundary should not be crossed, no amount of pressure could make him violate it. Yet that day he had attacked the elder brother who might one day become emperor, solely for me. My nose suddenly stung, and I hurriedly turned my face away. What other betrothal gift was so important that you had to bring it today? I asked casually. You already sent gifts high as a mountain. What small item could still be missing? Xiaoqi did not answer immediately. He took a silk bundle from inside his robe and opened it. Inside was a plain jade bracelet. It was not rare or precious, but he had preserved it with great care. He solemnly offered it to me. This was the gift my mother left for her future daughter-in-law. Before she died, she told me to give it to my future princess consort. It did not come from the palace. My mother saved for many years and bought it with her own money, so the jade is not of exceptional quality. In the wealthy general's manner, it was not an impressive object. Yet Xiaoqi stubbornly held it in his palm and waited. He waited for me to be angry, to accuse him of slighting me. With my status, how could he offer such a modest thing as though it were enough? Ever since the marriage unexpectedly fell upon him, he had lived in anxiety, waiting for my final judgment. At last, he received the answer he had been waiting for. I took the bracelet, slid it onto my wrist, then raised my hand and smiled. Is it beautiful? He stared at me for a long time. His eyes suddenly reddened, and the gentleness within them became a resolve I had never seen before. Ah Wan, he said clearly, word by word, I want to fight for the throne. No one understood better than a battlefield commander that the victor became king, the defeated were branded rebels, and the weak became fish on the chopping block. Xiaoqi had never wanted the throne because he had possessed nothing and could live however fate allowed. But now that was impossible. He had me, the only daughter of the general of the northern garrison, raised like a jewel, open-hearted and unable to endure humiliation. The man trying to take his wife was the future son of heaven, who would stand above all others. Xiaoqi would not remain useless and watch the woman he loved be humiliated. He had no other choice and he no longer wanted one. Once he decided, he acted. Though Xiaoqi never flaunted his strength, years of campaigning had rooted his prestige deep in the army. Xiaoxi spent his efforts attracting civil officials. Xiaoqi's men were brothers who had passed through life and death battles beside him. Their bond had been bought with their very lives. When they learned the road he had chosen, not one retreated. All swore to follow him to the end. Xiaoxi's situation meanwhile worsened. The day after he entered my courtyard, my father brought a formal accusation before the emperor. The crown prince secretly entered the private chamber of an unmarried woman. Worse, she is the future princess consort whom your majesty personally granted to his imperial brother. Such conduct is beyond belief. What father or husband under heaven could endure such humiliation? The previous night, Xiaoqi had already knelt outside the palace gate with one demand. The crown prince had behaved without virtue and offended his future sister-in-law. An explanation must be given. The emperor flew into a rage. He hurled the teacup directly at Xiaoxi's head, drawing blood. It was true that the emperor had always favored Xiaoxi and disliked Xiaoqi because of his mother's low status. But that favoritism existed only while Xiaoxi remained worthy of the position of crown prince. Now he had acted recklessly and immorally, and the scandal had spread through the capital. The ruler on the dragon throne could no longer openly protect him. Xiaoxi received 30 strokes of the cane, lost the important duty of receiving foreign envoys, and was again confined to the Eastern Palace. When the news arrived, Su Duchen staggered and nearly fainted. She was distressed not only by Xiaoxi's punishment. His scandal had enraged the aging emperor so severely that the emperor coughed blood and lost consciousness, shocking the entire realm. But what did that have to do with me? My wedding to Xiaoqi proceeded as planned. Because the emperor wished to compensate us for Xiaoxi's misconduct, he raised the ceremony several ranks. It became even grander than Xiaoxi and Shu Duchen's wedding. When I met Shu Duchen again at a banquet hosted by a princess, more than half a year had passed since the crown prince's confinement was lifted. Yet his former authority had never returned. First, corruption was uncovered in cases he had handled. Then someone beat the grievance drum and accused one of his trusted aides of treating human life as worthless. Beset by scandal, Xiaoxi tried to redirect attention by proposing a northern campaign, but the military officials rejected him together. A royal sister-in-law sat beside me. Her husband served as one of Xiaoqi's commanders. Leaning close, she whispered, "With matters continuing like this, His Majesty is increasingly dissatisfied with the crown prince. The crown princess runs everywhere asking the Su family to repair the damage, but the Zus are civil officials. How can they interfere in military affairs? Without the Chen family's support, and with most military leaders leaning toward Xiaoqi because of his prestige, Xiaoxi could no longer launch a northern war and use military merit to recover the emperor's favor. He could only watch as Xiaoqi cast aside his former calm, non-competitive manner and began openly vying for power. Xiaoqi resolved several difficult matters that had troubled the emperor and rose with astonishing speed. How could Shu Duchen, as crown princess, avoid becoming haggard? How could her expression remain pleasant when she saw me? While the royal sister-in-law whispered to me, a clear voice rang. I looked up. The newcomer was the host of the banquet, the emperor's most favored youngest daughter, Princess Minglan. I remembered her. She was hot-tempered. In my previous life, we had never gotten along. After I entered the Eastern Palace, she became especially close to Su Duchen. Each time Su Dun wept and provoked her, Minglan rushed at me like a spear. This life was no different. The moment I raised my head, anger blazed in her eyes. You are truly vicious. You and the crown princess are sisters-in-law. She is sitting there crying, yet you still laugh and chat as though nothing is wrong. She had probably disliked me for a long time. Her voice was loud enough to draw the attention of every lady and young woman at the banquet. Shu Duchen looked sorrowful and pretended to stop her. Princess, that only made Xiao Minglan angrier. Sister-in-law, you need not fear her. Today I will force her to explain herself. My elder brother, the crown prince, has been repeatedly reprimanded by father because of her, and he has lost so much weight. Yet she has no shame and can still laugh. She pointed at me. Chenwan, should you not apologize to my elder brother and sister-in-law? Apologize? I repeated the word and laughed. I truly do not understand. Princess, what exactly do you mean? Shu Duchen's hand paused while wiping her tears. Xiao Minglan also froze. Shu Duchen was surprised because in the past, if someone had pointed at my face and insulted me like this, I would already have lost my temper and started shouting. She had not expected me to question Minglan so calmly. Minglan stared in disbelief. You are shameless. Was it not you and your husband who caused my elder brother and sister-in-law so much pain? How strange. I adopted the expression of an eager student. Does the princess mean that the crown prince and crown princess are unhappy today because of me? Of course, Minglan answered confidently. I nodded. So I should feel guilty instead of sitting here and speaking happily. A noblewoman joined in with displeasure. Princess consort of Qi, is that not obvious? The crown princess grows more haggard by the day. You are sisters-in-law. Even if you do not intend to comfort her, laughing in front of her is excessive. I recognized the speaker as the daughter of the minister. Years ago, after Su Duchen falsely accused me of pushing her into the lake, this woman was the first to stand with her and bring her into Jinling's social circle. I looked directly at her. Then may I ask why the crown prince was punished? Did father not already explain? Xiao Minglan answered without thinking. My elder brother was punished because he trespassed. She stopped. Her voice grew smaller, and the entire gathering quieted. I continued as though I had not noticed. The crown prince entered another family's residence without permission and behaved improperly in word and action toward his future sister-in-law. His Majesty, in his wisdom, followed the law and punished him to secure justice for me. Then, according to the princess, although Chenwan nearly had her reputation ruined and endured endless gossip, she must still bow respectfully, thank the crown prince and crown princess, and apologize to them. I smiled directly at Minglan. What principle demands that the victim lower her head and thank the person who caused the harm? If such a claim spread beyond this banquet, even if I dared offer such an apology, Xiaoxi and Xu Duchen would not dare accept it. Minglan's force immediately weakened, but she still argued stubbornly. The crown prince has already been punished. Why are you still kicking someone when he is down in front of sister-in-law? Kicking her when she is down? I raised my voice slightly and looked at Xu Duchen, who had done nothing but wipe tears. Crown princess, since arriving at this flower banquet, have I spoken one sentence to you? Have I approached you even once? Called out before so many watching eyes, Xu Duchen's hand stopped. I gave her no time to compose an answer. If not, and if we have had nothing to do with each other, why does the crown princess look as though I have bullied her into tears? That is true, said the royal sister-in-law who had been speaking with me. She frowned in confusion. Could the crown princess be unhappy merely because she saw the princess consort of Qi? Yet the one who suffered loss was clearly the princess consort. Xu Duchen bit her lip and lowered her gaze. I was not distressed because of the princess consort. I felt unwell and shed a few tears. As for her questions, she spoke gently. Minglan was worried for me and became too anxious. I tried to stop her, but I simply could not. With those few sentences, she pushed all responsibility onto Minglan, making the princess appear unreasonable and unwilling to let the matter go. Xu Duchen had only cried. Every accusing word had come from Xiao Minglan. Even Minglan, however impulsive, noticed the strange looks around her. Her anger flared at once. What do you mean by that? Were you not the one who kept crying to me in private that my elder brother neglected you because of that temptress Chen Wan? That is why I agreed to help you vent your anger today. Xu Duchen looked alarmed. Princess, what are you saying? I do not understand. When did I ever say such things? Minglan wanted to refute her, but Xu Duchen had always spoken those words only when they were alone. There was no third witness. If Xu Duchen denied everything now, who could prove otherwise? Minglan looked as though she had been struck by lightning. Any other noble young woman might have swallowed the humiliation, but Xiao Minglan had been pampered from childhood and possessed a fiery temper. The instant she realized Xu Duchen had used her as a weapon, she rushed forward and seized her. You despicable wretch! The banquet fell into chaos. By the time the two women were pulled apart, more than half the guests had fled. Minglan's face was dark with fury. She shook off those restraining her and glared at Xu Duchen, whose face had been scratched and who was crying pitifully. That only made Minglan angrier. When she turned and saw me standing beyond the crowd, she gritted her teeth. She is despicable and you are no better. Both of you bullied me. I am going to my elder brother and I will complain about you both. She stormed away. The remaining guests dispersed awkwardly. I was about to leave when Xu Duchen's voice sounded behind me. Chen Wan, you must be very pleased. No one else remained nearby. The fragile expression disappeared from her face, replaced by resentment and bitter grievance. You saw me reduced to this state. You must be delighted. She had always valued dignity and splendor. Today, she had been scratched, insulted before a crowd, and humiliated beyond measure. When I remained silent and looked at her coldly, her voice sharpened. Do not look at me like that. What I hate most is your innocent, carefree expression, as though you have never understood how much others suffer. Have you not always wanted to know why I insisted on harming you that year? Because I had no choice. I had no choice at all. Xiaoxi's repeated failures had nearly driven her mad. Her eyes reddened. I was merely the abandoned legitimate daughter, whom the family brought home only when they needed me. There was no place for me in the residence. The noble ladies mocked me as a country-bred fool. I had already grown used to all of it, but why did you have to appear? She said that when she first met me, she had truly been happy. We were both outsiders and unwelcome. Whenever she saw me excluded or mocked, she approached to comfort me. Then she waited and waited. What she expected was for me to cry, complain, and endure every grievance as she had. Instead, I stood with a whip in one hand and the other planted on my hip. Anyone who wronged me once, I repaid twice over. It was strange, she said. I should have been happy to see you defend yourself. Instead, I felt only resentment. Why did I have to endure while you dared resist? Why did I suffer while you cared so little? Everyone else was the same as me. Why were you the only exception? Then my family forced me to marry the crown prince and I discovered that the woman Xiaoxi truly loved was you. So you told everyone I pushed you into the lake, I said calmly. That earned the noble young lady's sympathy and gave you a chance to approach Xiaoxi, forcing him to marry you. She laughed bitterly. So what if I did? You have ruined everything now. She had believed that after becoming crown princess, even if I still entered the Eastern Palace, I would remain beneath her forever. She was confident that with enough time, even Xiaoxi's love would eventually belong to her, but I did not enter the Eastern Palace. After learning that Xiaoxi had married her, I refused the position of secondary consort and married Xiaoqi instead. I became princess consort of Qi. Once Xiaoqi chose to contend for the throne, the two of us joined forces and gained the support of the military faction, making us strong enough to stand against Xiaoxi. It is unfair, Xu Duchen said. She wiped her tears, lifted her chin proudly again, and stared at me with hatred. I planned for so many years, yet because of you, all my work has been destroyed. Chen Wan, this is not fair. The instant she finished, she rushed toward me. The scene was almost identical to the day I went into the lake to pick lotus flowers for her. Back then, she had dragged me into the water with her. This time, the instant she lunged, I stepped aside. She fell into the lake with a splash. At the same moment, someone rushed forward and pulled me securely into his arms. Duchen, two figures shot past and jumped into the water one after the other. Help me, Xu Duchen cried as she struggled. Xiaoqi had arrived, but he seemed not to see her at all. He looked only at me and asked anxiously, Are you hurt anywhere? I shook my head and laughed. I am still standing here. How could I be hurt? Xu Duchen is the one struggling terribly. Two people had already gone into the lake to rescue her. By the time the others gathered, she was finally brought ashore. The instant she was safe, she clutched the skirt of the person beside her and screamed in fear. It was her! She pushed me into the water. Weeping miserably, she clung to the pink skirt beside her and looked toward Xiaoxi, who had helped bring her ashore. Your Highness, I truly do not know how I offended my sisters so deeply that she would push me into the lake. I know your Highness shares a deep bond with her, but this time I nearly lost my life. I cannot endure it any longer. Even if she refuses to admit it, I will bring my accusation before His Majesty. She grew more agitated as she spoke, never noticing that the surrounding silence had become frightening. Even Xiaoxi showed no reaction. Everyone watched her strangely. Only after a long moment did she sense something was wrong. Your Highness? She hesitantly raised her head. Across from her I stood with dry clothes, my fingers intertwined with Xiaoqi's. Chen Wan? Why are you standing there? She asked in horror. If the person who fell into the lake was not me, then who was the second person who jumped in to save you? Whose pink skirt are you clinging to so desperately? Dread rose across Xu Duchen's face. She looked hurriedly toward Xiaoxi. There was no pity left in his eyes, only disappointment. Slowly, she followed the familiar pink skirt upward. The face looking down at her belonged to Xiao Minglan, furious beyond words. The affair still reached the emperor, but Xu Duchen was not the one who brought the complaint. Xiao Minglan dragged her directly before the throne, knelt down, wept, made a scene and demanded justice. Minglan had been used by Xu Duchen, but she had originally gone only to complain to Xiaoxi and vent her anger. Xiaoqi, uneasy about me, followed into the women's garden. They arrived just as Xu Duchen fell into the lake. Xiaoxi immediately jumped in to save her. Minglan hesitated, but remembering their former closeness, she also entered the water. She set aside their quarrel and helped save Xu Duchen, only for Xu Duchen to seize her skirt, reverse right and wrong, and accuse her of being the culprit. With Minglan's temper, she could never swallow such humiliation. She refused even to listen to Xiaoxi and insisted on making the scandal known to everyone, demanding that her father decide the matter. The outcome was inevitable. Xiaoxi's repeated failures had already cost him much of the emperor's trust. Now Xu Duchen created another disgrace. The emperor finally abandoned his favoritism and dealt with the matter according to law. Xu Duchen was stripped of her title as crown princess and sent to a secluded imperial convent publicly to reflect and repent. Everyone knew, however, that the place functioned as confinement for royal women who had committed serious offenses. It had countless ways to force sincere repentance, and no woman sent there was allowed an easy or peaceful end. When the decree arrived, Xu Duchen panicked completely. She struggled and cried, "Your Highness, I want to see you. I am the crown princess. You cannot treat me this way." The older matron, restraining her, laughed strangely. "You still do not know? There is no crown princess anymore." The crown prince committed one grave mistake after another, and this time the imperial family lost all face. His Majesty has deposed him for lack of virtue. He is now only Prince Chung. The emperor ordered Shaoxi to lead troops north against the tribes. It was perhaps the last chance the old ruler gave him. If he could win as brilliantly as Shaoqi, he might return and recover the position of crown prince. But he never returned. Less than 3 weeks later, an urgent report arrived from the frontier. The imperial army had won, but Prince Cheng had made a disastrous decision, become trapped in the enemy camp and disappeared. The news struck the already failing emperor. He coughed blood and fell seriously ill. Looking over the princes before him, he finally sighed, pointed to Shaoqi, and named him crown prince. Immediately afterward, he died. Perhaps until his final breath, he never imagined that the son he had always guarded against and suppressed, because he feared the Chen family's power, would, in the end, become the person he trusted most. Fortunately, the Chen family still stood ready to clear every obstacle for the new ruler. This time I became crown princess. 7 days later, I became empress. On the day of the formal investiture, I deliberately visited the imperial prison, where one particular prisoner was confined. 2 iron hooks held him through the shoulders, and a penal mark had been carved into his face. No outsider would have believed that the gravely wounded prisoner before me was Prince Cheng, whom the world believed lost on the battlefield. The moment he saw me, he laughed and wept at once. "Awan, you finally came back. So it really was you who returned. You hate me. You hate me for exiling your entire family 1,000 away, but I never took their lives. Think carefully. The Chen family is so powerful. What new emperor could ascend without fearing them? Who would not want to remove them? You chose Shaoqi. Are you not afraid that one day he will treat the Chen family exactly as I did?" "No," I answered calmly. He sneered. "You trust him that much?" "Not entirely." I shook my head. On our wedding night, in front of him, I placed a paired life guamiao bond that tied our lives together into our ceremonial wine. Shaoxi went still. "He saw it," I continued, "and he drank anyway. If he ever truly betrays the Chen family, then should I die, so will he." Even so, I had always felt we might never need that bond, because on that wedding night, I dreamed of my former life. In the dream, Shaoxi and Xu Duchen were rescued from the palace fire, but both were left covered in terrible burns. Shaoqi rode 1,000 li back to the capital, and desperately searched through the ruins for every fragment of my remains. He raised his sword toward Shaoxi, his eyes filled with hatred. "You caused her death. You caused her death. You exiled the entire Chen family and secretly intercepted every letter I sent her through all those years. You drove her to the end. Shaoxi will not kill you. I will make you live on in misery, because you do not deserve to die beside Awan." Tears silently fell from his reddened eyes. He looked just like the quiet young man who had always followed behind me, whom I had once teased until he shyly called me sister-in-law. I awakened with a start. When my mind cleared, I realized I was still beneath warm blankets. The man who had wept over the urn, holding my remains in the dream, now held me tightly in his arms, gently nuzzling against my neck and ear. He called softly, "Awan, let us welcome the dawn together." Thank you for supporting Panda. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring you more amazing stories. Now, let's begin story 2. Because my birth date and hour were considered auspicious, I was tricked and taken away when I was 8 years old. I became a bride used to bring good fortune, married to the young master of the Kui family when he was gravely ill and close to death. But after the young master recovered, he looked down on me more and more. "Ah Yao, with the way you look now, you are not even quite qualified to be my concubine. Can you not make some effort to dress yourself properly? Must you insist on wearing the clothes of a maidservant?" I lowered my head until I was almost crying from shame. Was he not the one who had sent me away to work as a maidservant? The young master who had once sworn that when we grew up, he would marry me properly again, had finally changed his heart. Later, Madame Cui specially rewarded me with a brand new set of clothes. "Ah Yao, my nephew from my maiden family is about to go to sea with the treasure fleet. Can you marry him and leave him an heir? My nephew is Wang Shen. He was even your elder brother for 2 days before. Now, while still young, he is already a banner officer." I froze. My hand, which had been stroking the new sleeve, also stopped without my noticing. Was I not the young master's bride for good fortune? Could I still remarry another man? That cousin young master had been my elder brother for 2 days. Why did I have no impression of him at all? With a sharp clink, Madame Kui set her teacup down on the table. I was so frightened that I lowered my head even farther. You have eaten the food of my family for 8 years, and worn the clothes of my family for 8 years. Have you long forgotten what your status is? I had not forgotten, nor had I ever dared to forget. To treat my mother's illness, my father sold me into Chunfeng House. Even now, I still remembered Madame Su, the brothel keeper, looking at me with her bright red lips as if she were looking at a piece of merchandise. I still remembered what it felt like to make a mistake and then be starved until I nearly died. Fortunately, Madame Kui was kind-hearted. She spent 10 taels of silver to buy me back and make me a bride for good fortune. I hurriedly knelt and kowtowed to Madame. Ah Yao has never dared forget that Ah Yao's life was saved by Madame. Ah Yao will obey Madame in everything. Madame Cui nodded in satisfaction. The ruby ornament on her head trembled slightly. Xian will go to sea with the treasure fleet in 2 months. In my view, your wedding and Ji's wedding should simply be set on the same day. With one sentence, Madame decided everything. Cui Ji, young master Cui, the young master I had married to bring good fortune, was about to marry, and I was about to become someone else's bride. After Nanny Wang came in, I withdrew in a daze. Ever since Cui Ji's illness fully recovered, Madame no longer liked me. She always taught me to observe propriety, to know my place, and said that if the Kui family had not been kind enough to buy me back, I would long ago have become a ruined woman in a brothel. Because of that, I was deeply grateful to the Cui family. Every day I prayed for Cui Ji to be healthy and safe. The Cui family's business became more and more prosperous. Perhaps the gods really had answered. Cui Ji recovered completely, and the Cui family's trade spread throughout Taicang. The only pity was that all of them prospered, while I went from being the young mistress to a maidservant. Where did everything begin? 6 years ago, the Cui family held a flower viewing banquet. Many madams, young masters and young ladies from wealthy and noble families attended. Quite a few madams praised me for my dignified manners and lovely appearance. They even quietly asked which family's young lady I was. A young lady whom Cui Ji had been trying hard to please asked who I was. Cui Ji's face flushed red. He stammered and could not answer. I walked forward openly. Greetings, young lady. I am Cui Ji's bride for good fortune. My name is Chen Yao. Unexpectedly, that young lady burst into tears. Cui Ji, you already have a wife, so why did you still write me love poems? Feeling wronged, she threw the delicate poem paper from her scented pouch at Cui Ji, then ran away crying. Cui Ji widened his eyes and shouted at me. Chen Yao, you are clearly only a maidservant my family bought for 10 taels of silver. What bride for good fortune? At that moment, Cui Ji's shout scared me senseless. By the time I came back to myself, I had already been changed into a maidservant's clothing, and forced to kneel on the ground to apologize to that young lady. Cui Ji pointed at me and shouted sternly, Ah Yao, tell Miss Shen who you are. I lowered my head and shed tears, repeating in a daze what Nanny Wang had instructed me to say. I am a maidservant the Kui family bought for 10 taels of silver. Relying on my master's kindness, I grew greedy and overstepped my place. I often secretly wore my master's clothes and pretended to be the young master's wife. Only then did Miss Shen stop crying and smile. Young Master Kui truly is generous. Why keep a maid who likes to steal? You may as well sell her off. When I heard the word sell, I suddenly remembered those days of being beaten and starved in Chunfeng House. I trembled in fear and finally fainted. When I woke up, I had been moved from Cui Ji's room to the side room, and then to the large bed shared by the maidservants. I was often bullied by the other maidservants, so Nanny Wang let me share a room with her. From then on, I went from being the Cui family's young mistress to Ah Yao the maidservant. I did not dare complain at all. I only hoped Madame and the young master would stop being angry with me. Perhaps I was a fairly good maidservant. Cui Ji, moved by a rare moment of mercy, allowed me to serve in his study. Whenever he went out to travel or discuss business, he also brought me along. In his free time, he taught me to read and write. Seeing that I was clever, he even hired a female teacher to teach me music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. I thought Cui Ji had begun to like me again, so every day I studied with all my strength. He especially liked the floral patterns I drew, and took them to the weaving workshop so the master craftsman could make them into patterned fabrics. Unexpectedly, all the madams and young ladies liked those fabrics very much. The business of the Kui family's cloth shop grew more and more prosperous. That was the first time he praised me after I became a maidservant. Ah Yao, you are truly capable. The cloth shop is doing so well and your contribution is not small. At that time, flowers seemed to bloom all at once in my heart. He said that as long as I obediently listened to him, I would still be his wife. When I grew up, he would marry me once more. Good girl, Ah Yao. Good girl, Ah Yao. The parrot's voice rang by my ear. Only then did I realize I had somehow been standing beside the birdcage hanging under the corridor. Looking at the parrot in the cage, I suddenly felt that we shared the same fate, as if loved, yet without any freedom. From inside the room came broken pieces of conversation. Madam, the 1,000 household commander who will become your in-law this time will also go to sea. After he returns, he will certainly be promoted. The young master truly has good judgment to have found such a powerful and flourishing wife's family. It is only Yao. Madam gave a light snort. If not for the fact that my nephew from my maiden family lost both parents and missed the proper time for marriage because of mourning, how could such a good match ever fall to a lowly girl like her? Nanny Wang hurriedly echoed. Madam is right. At first, Yao was brought back from the Wang family only because her birth chart was good, bringing prosperity to her husband and his household. Now the Wang family has only young Master Wang Xian left. It is just right to let her return and make the Wang family prosper once more. After adding water and food for the parrot, I returned to the servants' courtyard with my mind full of questions. Out of habit, I also washed the clothes Nanny Wang had just changed out of. As I was washing, Nanny Wang came back. She looked at me and sighed. Ah, Yao, I thought that if you could not become the Cui family's lawful wife, at least you might become a concubine. I did not expect Madam to want to marry you away. Nanny? I asked hesitantly while wringing the clothes. Do I have some connection with the Wang family? Why do I not remember it? A look of reminiscence appeared on Nanny Wang's face. Back then, the young master was critically ill, and master had almost prepared his funeral. Just then, a mad old Taoist passed by the Cui family and said we had to search to the southeast for a girl born in the year of the Earth Tiger on the 10th day of the month during the Dragon Hour. If we found a person with that fate and joined her in marriage, she would certainly help her husband's career flourish and make the household prosperous. Master drove the mad Taoist away, but Madam believed him without the slightest doubt. I followed Madam and searched for 3 days and 3 nights before we finally found you in the home of Madam's nephew from her maiden family, which was young Master Wang Xian's home. At that time, Madam Wang had just redeemed you from Chunfeng House 2 days earlier. You were so thin that only bones were left, but your eyes were very large and very bright. At that time, Madam placed all her hope on you, and tried every means to bring you back. She treated you extremely well, and you sincerely cared for the young master. After the young master's illness improved, you fell seriously ill instead. After you recovered, you forgot many things. It is just, Nanny Wang sighed again. I knew what she had not said. It was just that after Cuiji fully recovered, they no longer needed me, no longer liked me, and even began to despise me. Even though the Cui family's cloth shop made money hand over fist because of the patterns I drew. Once, Cui's drunk, Cuiji even said bluntly, Yao, your birth is too low, you are worth only 10 taels of silver. You are not worthy of me, but I will not fail you. I will take you as a concubine. At last I woke from the dream. After I, the bride for good fortune, had brought good fortune, I was no longer a wife. In Madam's eyes, I was only a lowly maidservant. In Cuiji's eyes, I was only worthy of being a concubine. The expectations of a young girl's midnight dreams finally woke completely. When I was tidying Cuiji's study, someone suddenly embraced me tightly from behind. Cuiji's hot breath fell against the hollow of my neck. Yao, after I marry, I will immediately take you as my concubine. Only then will we truly be together. Outside the window, clusters of white hydrangeas bloomed round as snow, surrounded by lush green leaves. I did not know how to answer. I only lowered my head uneasily. He leaned close to my ear and whispered, Bai Weilan is gentle and dignified. She is the daughter of 1,000 household commander, not domineering like Miss Shen. In the future, as long as you respect her, she will not make things difficult for you. Do not worry. As long as you are obedient, Weilan and I will both treat you well. After speaking, Cuiji tied the scented pouch I had embroidered with my own hands onto his belt, then took my hand and walked out. I panicked and hurriedly pulled my hand back. Young master, if Madam sees this, she will be angry. At those words his steps paused. It was rare for him to coax me so patiently. Do not worry, I told mother long ago that you will be my concubine in the future. What does it matter if I only hold your hand? Long ago. So Madam had deceived him. She was marrying me to his cousin in order to leave him no way back. Did Madam truly hate me that much? In a daze, I followed Cuiji to Haiyan Tower by the river. Looking down from the private room on the 2nd floor, the dock of the harbor was crowded with foreign merchants and traders from all directions. Carriages and people came and went in a dense stream. The scene was extremely lively, worthy of a harbor that connected 6 countries. Inside the room were rosewood tables and chairs, calligraphy and paintings hanging on the walls, and the gentle sound of flute and zither. Suddenly, I saw Wang Xian. He was Madame's nephew from her maiden family and also my new fiancé. Wang Xian had handsome features, an easy bearing, and a calm, restrained temperament. He naturally carried an air of relaxed elegance. As soon as he saw me, he asked me to help choose a gift for a woman, saying it was to please his future wife. When he spoke, his gaze quietly rested on me, gentle yet proper. My face immediately turned red. Tension was all downstairs, so he only waved and told me to go with Wang Xian. When we went downstairs, I quietly followed behind him. He was tall and upright, elegant as carved jade. He walked slowly down the stairs, his back perfectly upright, his shoulders broad and waist narrow. Even his back looked graceful and carefree. Was this the husband I would have in the future? I heard he had also been my elder brother for 2 days. Did he still remember that? Outside, the dock was extremely lively. Masts stood one after another, people moved like woven threads, and the sounds of hawkers and laughter followed one another without end, full of the breath of life. His hand, with distinct knuckles, casually guarded me within reach. He was refined, proper, steady, and peaceful, making one feel extremely at ease. After entering a private room in the jewelry tower, he gently pushed a cup of tea in front of me. "Ah Yao, the Wang family has a family rule. A man may only take a concubine if he reaches 40 years old and still has no child. Today I can promise you that whether we have children after marriage or not, I will not take a concubine." I looked at him in a daze and my eyes gradually reddened. So he knew that Cuiji intended to take me as a concubine. Suddenly, a warm, dry hand held my slightly trembling hand. "Ah Yao, I cherish you very much. You are worth everything I can give." He gently wiped my tears with his sleeve. Before I could finish speaking, his index finger lightly touched my lips. "Ah Yao, you and I already have a betrothal. You may call me Brother Han, the way my late father and mother once did." The words Brother Han circled on the tip of my tongue, but I still could not say them. Blushing, I lowered my head and whispered, "Young Master Wang, I am only a lowly maidservant. I am not worthy." He tightened his grip on my hand. His voice was full of urgency. "Ah Yao, you are very good. You should originally have been the young lady of the Wang family, if not for my aunt." At that moment, waves of chaotic shouts came from downstairs. "The horse has lost control. The horse has lost control. Hurry, save someone." Wang Xian quickly told me not to go downstairs. Then he lightly leapt down from the 2nd floor and ran toward the panicked horse. Looking at the chaos below, my heart tightened with worry for Wang Xian. Holding up my skirt, I quickly ran downstairs. Because the runaway horse had frightened the chickens in their cages, the birds flew about in panic. Seeing a rooster about to peck a young lady's face, I hurriedly reached out to shield her. A sharp pain immediately shot through the back of my hand, burning all the way into the flesh. When I pulled my hand back, blood from the back of my hand accidentally smeared across that young lady's face. I was about to take out a handkerchief and wipe her face when someone shoved me hard. I fell heavily to the ground. A piercing pain came from my ankle. I could not help but cry. When I looked up, Cuiji was furious, his eyes nearly splitting with anger. "Ah Yao, how can your heart be so vicious? Are you trying to ruin Wei Lan?" I shook my head. "Young master, I did not. Just now." But Cuiji did not bother to listen to my explanation. He gently wiped that young lady's face with his sleeve, his attitude reverent, as if he were cleaning a priceless treasure. Cuiji had once cherished me that way too. That had been when I had stayed by his side for 2 months once. Because the bowl of medicine was too hot, I accidentally broke it. Cuiji had been just as gentle then, softly blowing on my red, scalded fingers. I forced down the sour ache in my heart. It was already past. Yesterday's matters could not be held onto. I wiped away my tears, endured the pain in my ankle, and slowly stood up. A maid beside that young lady seized the chance to complain. "Young Master Kui, this servant was already about to save my young lady just now, but this girl rushed forward in a panic and got blood all over my young lady's face. How unlucky." I opened my mouth to explain, but suddenly realized Cuiji did not want to listen at all. He said in a low voice, "Ah Yao, apologize to Miss Bai at once." The person standing before me was Bai Wei Lan. She had delicate features and gentle, dignified manners. At a glance one could tell she was a young lady from a refined family. Whenever her gaze occasionally swept toward me, it carried a bit of scrutiny and arrogance. Was this Cuiji's unmarried wife? Enduring the pain, I obediently bent my knees in greeting. "Miss Bai, it was all because Ah Yao was reckless." Before I could finish speaking, a pair of strong hands helped me stand. Wang Shen's eyes were full of worry. I shook my head lightly. Ah Yao, Cuiji said, his gaze moving between me and Wang Xian. You have not finished apologizing yet. I gently pulled my arm away from the hand, supporting me, and bent my knees again. I am sorry, Bai Weilan. I am sorry, Miss Bai. It was all Ah Yao's fault. Please be generous and forgive Ah Yao this once. The pain in my ankle and the back of my hand came one wave after another. I remained in that half-kneeling posture until cold sweat was about to drip from my forehead. Only then did I finally hear Bai Weilan's voice. Stand up. Be careful next time. Do not rely on your young master's kindness and go around making trouble. Although my heart was full of grievance, I could only lower my head and answer yes. She continued. As a woman, even if you are only a maidservant, you should know propriety, righteousness, integrity, and shame. Ah Yao, how can you tug and pull at an outside man like that? I hurriedly denied it. Miss Bai, I did not. This young master is young Master Wang. Wang Xian said coldly. Miss Bai is also a woman. You should not convict someone casually with a few baseless words. Bai Weilan lowered her eyes and fell silent. Cuiji's expression became somewhat hard to read. After exchanging a few polite words with Wang Xian, he said he wanted to continue taking everyone around. I did not dare look at Wang Xian's expression. I only quietly retreated behind Cuiji. When Wang Xian passed by me, he secretly placed a handkerchief in my hand. I gripped the handkerchief tightly, my heart tangled like a mess of threads. I was only a small maidservant. What had I done to deserve Wang Xian's concern and his wish to marry me? Bai Weilan twisted the handkerchief in her own hand, her face full of grievance. Brother Cui, I was showing concern for your maidservant, but it seems she does not appreciate it. In our 1,000 household commander's residence, a sharp-tongued maid like that would be beaten and sold. My heart clenched. I looked nervously toward Cuiji. He softened his voice to coax Bai Weilan. When we go home, I will punish her. Do not let her ruin your mood. Whatever you like today, I will buy it for you as an apology. Cuiji and Bai Weilan walked slowly side by side, their gazes full of affection. I followed at the very back in fear and anxiety, together with Bai Weilan's maid Cuicui. Cuicui disliked me very much. So you are Ah Yao, the maidservant, who became proud because she gained a little favor from young Master Xue? You really do look like a little vixen. I advise you to put away that look of yours. My young lady hates vixens like you the most. After saying that, she even secretly bumped into me. Did you hear me? I nearly lost my balance and my ankle hurt even more. When she tried to bump me again, I quickly took 2 steps forward. Ah, she cried, falling straight into an older woman's arms. Cuiji glanced at me, and his eyes secretly carried warning. Ah Yao, go home first. Remember to feed the parrot properly. I answered softly and slowly walked to the roadside, intending to hire a donkey cart home. Ah Yao! Wang Xian sat inside a carriage and waved me over. I felt somewhat guilty and only climbed into the carriage after a long pause. I lowered my head and sat down, feeling his burning gaze on the top of my head. Young Master Wang, just now I heard many people praising you for your bravery. When you subdued the runaway horse, were you hurt? He suddenly smiled brightly, laughter shining in his eyes. Ah Yao, are you worried about me? I hummed softly in agreement. At his signal, I extended the injured back of my hand. He used a wet cloth to gently clean away the dirt, applied medicine, and then carefully wrapped the wound with gauze. After that, he gently held my hand. My heart beat faster, and my face burned. I tried to pull my hand back but failed. Ah Yao, why did you not use the handkerchief I gave you to bandage the wound? His gaze darkened, as if he were suppressing something. Are you hurt anywhere else? I did not answer. He tightened his grip on my hand slightly. The wound was too dirty. I was afraid of dirtying young Master Wang's handkerchief. There is nowhere else, only my ankle hurts a little. I think I sprained it. We are betrothed husband and wife. Amid my soft cry of surprise, he gently removed the shoe and sock from my injured foot. My ankle was already red and swollen. No wonder every step had hurt. He blew lightly on the swelling, his eyes full of heartache. It will not hurt, Ah Yao. Then he took medicine from a hidden compartment, slowly applied it, and gently massaged the area. My mind became hazy. This scene of Wang Xian gently applying medicine to me seemed to have once appeared in a dream. I have rented a small courtyard. After you return, pack your things. Before we marry, you can stay there first. I abruptly raised my head and looked at him in disbelief. Immediately after, my tears fell like a broken string of pearls. He panicked and wiped them for me. What is it? Did I say something wrong? Before you marry, are you unwilling to leave the Kui family? I shook my head again and again, all kinds of emotions surging in my heart. So this was what it felt like to be protected and pitied by someone. That feeling was completely different from the protection Nanny Wang gave me. Are you reluctant to leave Cuiji? He asked carefully. I shook my head, then boldly hugged him and listened to the strong heartbeat in his chest. Young Master Wang, there is no longer any place for young Master Kui in my heart. The reason I insisted on apologizing to Miss Bai was only because I wanted those two betrothed people to have no lingering knot between them. He seemed to let out a great breath of relief and reached out to stroke silly Ah Yao. Wang Shen went to pay his respects to Madam, while I returned to pack my belongings. When I saw Nanny Wang, both her eyes were red from crying. You truly are a blessed girl. I never expected young Master Wang to go so far for you, I asked in confusion. Go so far how? Nanny Wang sighed softly. Stand quietly outside Madam's door and listen. You will understand for yourself. Enduring the pain in my ankle, I hurried to Madame's courtyard. As I fed the parrot under the eaves, I heard voices from inside the room. Aunt, do not worry. On this sea voyage, all the goods I bring with me will belong to the Tui family. I guarantee the goods will be traded smoothly and that there will absolutely be no problems. Madame's happy laughter rang out. Of course I am at ease when you handle things. You may take Ah Yao away today, but it is best not to let Jia know about this. I do not want anything to happen to his marriage with the Bai family. At last, I understood why Madame had agreed to the marriage between me and Wang Xian. First, it was to drive me away so I would not be an eyesore before Bai Weilan. Second, it was to use me so Wang Xian would devote himself to planning and managing matters for the Cui family. In Wang Xian's heart, was I truly so important? A dull ache spread through my chest. I slowly walked out and happened to meet Cuiji, who had just returned. Ah Yao, were your injuries serious today? Cuiji asked awkwardly. Later, follow me back to the study and take the best wound medicine. Do not worry, it definitely will not leave a scar. I know what happened today cannot be blamed entirely on you. I made you suffer a grievance. Fortunately, Bai Weilan is sensible and did not argue with you. As he spoke, he took my hand, wanting to look at the wound on its back. A soft cough sounded. Taking the chance, I broke free from Cuiji's hold and hurried back to pack. I only packed a few sets of clothes and tied them into a small bundle. All the clothes and jewelry Madame and Cuiji had previously rewarded me with, I left behind in Nanny Wang's room. Those things all belonged to the Cui family. They did not belong to me. Nervous, I stood outside the gate, waiting for young Master Wang to come out. My heart was both happy and confused. Suddenly, someone grabbed my shoulder tightly. When I looked up, it was Cuiji. He stared fixedly at the bundle in my hand. Ah Yao, today I only pushed you once and scolded you a few times. Are you so angry that you want to run away from home? As a maidservant who had been bought back, where would I get the courage or even the life to put on a show of running away? Just as I did not know what to do, Madame spoke to help me out. Gee, your cousin is about to marry. Mother told Ah Yao to go over and help for a few days. Cuiji looked at me suspiciously. I nodded hard. Ah Yao, after helping for a few days, come back quickly. My study cannot do without you. If not for cousin, you would have become my concubine. How could you go work in another man's home? Perhaps the next time I met Cuiji, everything would be different. My eyes, disobedient as ever, turned red. Young master, remember to take care of yourself. After saying that, I hurried into the carriage. The carriage curtain blocked Cuiji's reluctant gaze. Why was there reluctance in his eyes? Would he be reluctant to part with a ten-tail wife like me? Once I had left the Cui family, the people and matters of the Cui family would no longer have anything to do with me. The small courtyard Wang Xian rented was not far from the Wang residence, and his wet nurse also stayed there with me. As soon as Nanny Gui saw me, she wiped her tears. Is this Miss Ah Yao? You have grown so much, and you are so beautiful. If Madame could see how you have grown, she would surely be very happy too. Wang Xian hurriedly smoothed things over for me. Nanny, Ah Yao suffered a serious illness back then and forgot everything about our home. When you have time later, you can slowly tell her. I knew that Wang Yan had no good intentions. Nanny Gui could not stop herself and spoke in one breath. Back then, she bitterly begged Madame to let her take you away. Young Master did not agree, so she secretly coaxed you. While young Master was not at home, she forcibly took you away. She stroked my hair, her face full of heartache. She used your blessing to save her son's life. Yet later she treated you badly and made you a maidservant for so many years. Although I no longer remembered who Nanny Gui was, the affection in her eyes was so sincere it could not be faked. I gently held her hand. Nanny, I have not suffered. I have returned now. In the future, no matter who tries to coax me, I will never leave again. Nanny Gui nodded again and again. Good child, good child. Then she wiped her tears and said to Wang Xian, Brother Han, hurry home and properly request leave from your superior. In 6 days we will bring Ah Yao home as our bride in full honor. Her words made both of us blush. Wang Xian left reluctantly, reminding me to apply the medicine on time. Nanny Gui then supported me into the room. Ah Yao, come try on the wedding dress. If anything does not fit, I will alter it. At a glance, the wedding dress was extremely gorgeous. The pair of mandarin ducks embroidered on it with gold thread seemed almost alive. I had never worn such beautiful clothing before. I slowly changed into the wedding dress. It fit perfectly. The dress was made of deep red brocade. The edges were bordered with red and gold patterns, embroidered with the image of many descendants and thousands of blessings. The hem was covered with tiny pearls, and with every step, the jade pendants rang softly. It was brilliant without being ostentatious. I stroked the gold thread embroidery on the sleeve. My heart, which had always been drifting uneasily, finally settled. At last I no longer had to suffer because of Cuiji's hot and cold moods, nor did I need to listen to the other maids mock me as the ten-tail wife. I was about to have a home of my own. Over the next few days, Nanny Gui busied herself caring for my skin and hair and carefully inspected each betrothal gift Wang Xian sent one after another. The proposal gift, asking the name, announcing the auspicious result, presenting the betrothal gifts, and requesting the wedding date. Not a single right was missing. At noon the day before the wedding, Nanny Wang suddenly came. "Yao, come back to the Cui family with me for a trip. The young master has not seen you for many days and has already flown into a rage at home." "Bah, old woman Wang, what nonsense are you saying?" Nanny Gui was furious. "Tomorrow, Yao will be the lawful wife properly married into our Wang family. What does young Master Cui's anger or fuss have to do with our Yao?" Nanny Wang hurriedly clasped her hands and pleaded, "Sister Gui, please do not make things difficult for me." At that moment, a young maid ran over looking for Nanny Wang, and said the young master had gone to the Wang residence to make trouble, demanding to take back his family's maidservant. Nanny Wang slapped her thigh. "What a sin, my young master!" She looked at me pleadingly. I firmly shook my head. "Nanny, I am no longer a maidservant of the Cui family. I am the Wang family's bride-to-be. I must consider the Wang family." Nanny Gui nodded at me with relief. With no other choice, Nanny Wang and the young maid left in a hurry, but my heart was in great turmoil. I understood Cuiji too well. If I did not appear, I did not know what else he might do. Nanny Gui comforted me. "Do not worry, Yao. Young master will handle it properly. Trust young master." That was right. Wang Xian was very capable. For him, such a small matter would be effortless. I checked the lists with Nanny Gui and arranged each box of betrothal gifts. Looking at the courtyard full of gifts, I finally truly understood Wang Xian's heart. When I sat in the bridal sedan and heard everyone around me marvel without end at how much dowry the bride had, I knew everything he had done was so I could hold my head high. He did not want anyone to look down on me. After I got out of the bridal sedan, a red silk ribbon connected our hands at both ends. I walked slowly, following Wang Xian across the threshold, into the main courtyard to bow to heaven and earth, and then into the bridal chamber. When the red bridal veil was lifted, Wang Xian and I quietly looked at each other. In my eyes was shyness, in his eyes was affection. After we drank the wedding wine, he took out a box. "These are the deeds to the fields, the shops under my name, all the silver notes and the indenture contracts of the servants. From now on, all of them will be handed to you to manage." I had just been about to refuse, but he directly placed the box into my hands. "I only have 3 days of leave for the wedding. The ceremony was rushed, and I have wronged you. Later I must train seriously and can only return home on rest days." He stood up and solemnly clasped his hands in salute. "Wife, in a little over a month I will follow the treasure fleet to sea. The day I return may be 1 or 2 years later. From now on, the Wang family's business and all matters inside the household must be entrusted to you. Why do you trust me so much? You are handing me the entire family fortune." My eyes filled with tears, my heart full of attachment. He gently embraced me. "Wife, these are only material things. They are the security I give you. If one day we must give them up, the most important person will still be you." I nodded hard. "Husband, do not worry." Over the years I stayed by young Master Kui's side and watched him discuss many business matters. I understand some of the principles involved. I will protect our family business well. The wedding candles burned brightly, filling the entire room with warmth. Behind the brocade curtains embroidered with paired mandarin ducks, 2 hearts leaned against each other. The next day, Wang Xian took me to inspect the family shops, instructing the shopkeepers and clerks so they would help me establish authority. When dusk fell, we went to the dock. The river wind passed over the bank, lanterns lit up, and everywhere was the prosperous scene of the night market. The roadside food stalls smelled wonderfully fragrant. Freshly made fried sticky rice cakes were golden and crisp. Osmanthus water chestnut cakes wrapped in a clear sweet floral fragrance were soft and chewy. Shrimp egg noodles were fresh, rich, and tempting. The two of us strolled slowly. Sometimes we tasted snacks, and sometimes we leaned against the railing to watch the flower boats on the river. The shimmering lantern light also reflected the affection in both our eyes. When I unintentionally raised my head, I saw someone leaning against the second-floor window of the restaurant opposite us. It was Cuiji. His face was quiet, and his eyes were dark and hard to read. Wang Xian thought for a moment, then led me toward him. When we reached the second floor and pushed open the door, I learned that the new young mistress of the Cui family, Bai Weilan, was also there. She was dressed splendidly, her hair full of pearls and jade. She glanced at the clothes I wore, her voice full of mockery. "Miss Yao, these past 2 days my husband has been begging me, and I agreed to let you become his concubine." It was not easy for me to nod, yet in the blink of an eye, you climbed onto a higher branch? Cuiji's eyes were red. He stared fixedly at the hands Wang Xian and I were holding. Wang Xian smiled faintly. "I think cousin's wife has misunderstood. Yao is the lawful wife of the Wang family, properly married with all 3 letters and 6 rights. The 2 of you should call her cousin-in-law." With a crash, Cuiji knocked over the brocade chair before him. His eyes were full of disbelief as he questioned coldly, Yao, why would cousin make such a joke? It is not funny at all. Mother said you only went to the Wang family to help. Now cousin has already married. Come home with me at once." If I were the Yao of the past, I would certainly have lowered my head and admitted fault immediately. But the Yao of the present was no longer afraid. I raised my head and, for the first time, looked at him openly and directly. "Young Master Kui, yesterday I married. I already have a husband. My home is the Wang family." He froze, his eyes panicked. "How can that be? All of you lied to me." His eyes filled with tears. "Mother, Yao, cousin, all of you lied to me." The person who had always stood high above me now lowered himself to beg. Yao, but you are my bride for good fortune. 8 years ago, we already bowed to heaven and earth. Mother and Weilan both agreed to let me take you as a concubine. Are you not happy? How can the Wang family compare with our Cui family? Besides, cousin is about to go to sea. The wind and waves are heartless. Cuij, I cut him off sternly. I do not allow you to curse my husband. Husband? He trembled and pointed at himself. Your husband is me. I shut my eyes tightly, forcing back the tears rising in them. Young Master Kui, you yourself once said that I was only a maidservant the Kui family bought for 10 taels of silver, that I was not even qualified to be your concubine. The Cui family is indeed wealthier than the Wang family, but in the Wang family I am the lawful wife. I can eat until I am full and dress warmly. I do not have to fear being starved or denied water because I made a mistake, nor do I have to live in terror that I will be sold at any moment. Cuiji still refused to give up. Those words about selling you were only jokes. We grew up together from childhood. How can 8 years of affection be cut off just because you say so? I shook my head lightly. Every time you said you would sell me, I believed it was true. We were not childhood sweethearts. We were only young master and maidservant, master and servant. And back then, it was not the Cui family who bought me. The person who rescued me from the fire pit was Madame Wang. I brought good fortune and saved your life, then served as a maidservant for the Kui family for so many years. I owe the Kui family nothing. Outside the window, the moon hung high, witnessing all things in the world. After this night, Cuiji and I would no longer have any connection. The young master who had controlled my fate for so many years would never again be able to control me. I turned and told Wang Xian that I was tired. He gave the Cui couple an indifferent glance, then picked me up and went straight downstairs. We had only just gone down when the quarrel between Bai Weilan and Cuiji came from upstairs. Sitting inside the carriage, I leaned against Wang Xian's chest. I have a home now. The Wang family is my home, right? Wang Xian took my hand and gently kissed it. Yes, the Wang family is Yao's home. It always has been. By the time we returned home, the moon had risen to the middle of the sky. Outside the room, clusters of hydrangeas were covered with a layer of silver light, swaying gently in the wind. Everywhere was peaceful and tender. On the bed, the brocade quilt still held creases, and long hair spilled loose. When I woke, Wang Xian had already left home for the guard garrison to train soldiers. Clearly we had not known each other for long, yet as soon as we were apart, my heart felt empty. Nothing around me felt familiar. After washing and combing my hair, I asked the maid to invite Nanny Gui to eat with me and help me. Before long I had a clear grasp of all major and minor matters in the household. After a few days I examined the account books of several shops and discovered that the profits of Jinwan jewelry shop were somewhat abnormal. Nanny Gui was beside me. Seeing me frown, she asked, Yao, what is wrong? Is there a problem with the accounts? I nodded. There is a slight problem. Nanny, let us go to Jinwan jewelry shop and take a look. As soon as we arrived, I saw many people gathered in front of the restaurant opposite. That was the Kui family's restaurant. Nanny Gui went to ask around and came back to tell me, Ah Yao, an old woman in the restaurant across the street choked on a meatball. The shopkeeper was afraid she would die inside the restaurant, so he ordered the waiters to carry her out and throw her into the street. He did not even bother to call a doctor. They truly have no regard for human life. Servants are like their masters. I hurriedly squeezed through the crowd and ran over. The old woman's face had already turned purple and her eyes had rolled upward. I immediately wrapped both arms around her waist, made one hand into a fist and placed it above her navel, then gripped that fist with my other hand and quickly pressed upward with force. Voices of opposition rose around me. The shopkeeper is still trying to drive all of us away. I had no time to explain, and Nanny Gui also helped me. After doing it a few times, a meatball suddenly shot out of the old woman's mouth. At last the old woman could breathe normally. She was so frightened that she burst into sobs, calling her son's name over and over. But the shopkeeper still kept cursing that it was unlucky. Hurry and go. Do not delay the restaurant's business. Nanny Gui and I supported the old woman into the back courtyard of Jinwan jewelry shop to rest, then sent a clerk to invite a doctor. After taking her pulse, the doctor said the old woman had only suffered a fright. Luckily, we had made the meatball come out in time. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unthinkable. I was sitting and chatting with the old woman when the sound of Nanny Gui arguing suddenly came from the front. I hurried over and saw Nanny Gui gripping a young woman's clothes tightly, refusing to let her leave, while calling her a thief. Sister Xiaoxi, why is it you? When Xiaoxi saw me, her expression stiffened, and a trace of annoyance flashed in her eyes. She was the personal maid by Madame Cui's side and had made things difficult for me more than a few times. Ah Yao, I came under Madame's orders to Jinwan jewelry shop to take a few gold bracelets. Nanny Gui spat right in front of her. Your madam is madam of the Cui family. This is a Wang family shop. On what basis does she take jewelry without paying? Today, I happened to catch you. If I had not, would you have come to the shop every day to take jewelry? Nanny Gui immediately grabbed shopkeeper Wang and sternly questioned him. Shopkeeper Wang, tell me what this is about. Young master is busy at the guard garrison. Are you acting as a traitor inside the household? Shopkeeper Wang did not panic at all. Nanny Gui, how is this proper? This is a rule set by old Master Wang years ago. Every month, the young lady was allowed to choose a few pieces of jewelry she liked from the shop. Bah, you are clearly taking wages from the Wang family while staying loyal to the Cui family. In the past, she was the young lady of the Wang family, so of course she could take things from the Wang family shop. But now she has married into the Cui family and become Madame Cui. What right does she still have to take things from the Wang family? At this point, some regular customers of Jinwan jewelry shop had also understood the whole story. That is not right. A married daughter is like spilled water. For her to openly take things from her own nephew's family is truly unreasonable. At that moment, I saw Madame Cui standing outside the door. We looked at each other from afar, but both our identities had changed completely. I was no longer the lowly girl she could beat and scold as she pleased. She was no longer the mistress of the household who could decide my fate. No one understood this matter better than I did. This Jinwan jewelry shop was never old Master Wang's property. It was part of Madame Wang's dowry. As soon as these words fell, the discussions around us became even louder. The Cui family's properties already spread throughout Taichung, yet Madame Cui still covets her sister-in-law's dowry from her maiden family? You do not understand. Who would complain about having too much money? Only a fool would refuse an advantage placed in front of her. Mocking laughter immediately broke out among the crowd. Madame Cui's face had turned blue with anger. Her lips were pressed tightly together and her brows stood upright. She was clearly furious. Besides, over these years, the Cui family has become powerful. Would it not be easy for them to bully a lone nephew with no one to rely on? Madame Cui was so angry her eyes reddened. She raised a trembling finger to point at me, her lips shaking non-stop. But she could not open her mouth to defend herself. At that moment, a group of beggars ran over from the street, shouting loudly as they ran. The Cui family wants to suck their nephew's blood and eat his flesh. The great merchant Cui family wants to strip their nephew's money clean. After shouting for a while, they ran away again. Taking advantage of the chaos, Xiaoxi ran out. As soon as she reached the door, Madame Cui slapped her hard across the face. The commotion finally came to an end. Nanny Gui's eyes were round with shock. Ah Yao, how did things turn into this? Shopkeeper Wang immediately spoke. Madam, today everything was ruined by Nanny Gui. She made such a fuss and completely offended the Cui family. How will the Wang family's business in Taichung continue in the future? I gently patted Nanny Gui's back. It is all right. If we offended them, then we offended them. Exactly. A paternal aunt who only knows how to scheme for advantage from her nephew, and a restaurant owner who immediately throws a guest out when the guest is in danger. If you offend them, then so be it. The speaker was the old woman resting in the back courtyard. This elder sister of yours does not see things as clearly as this young lady. The old woman looked at Nanny Gui and said, Madame Cui is a blood relative, yet she does not care about affection for her nephew. Must you wait until she raises a knife before you cut ties completely? The old woman smiled mischievously at me. For today's matter to grow so large, I must also thank this young lady. Nanny Gui looked at me doubtfully. Could those people and those beggars all have been found by Ah Yao? I nodded and admitted it, saying that I had sent a clever clerk outside to find people. I helped Nanny Gui sit down on a chair. Although husband and nanny never said it, I know that because of me, the Wang family has been controlled by Madame Gui for many years. Nanny Gui anxiously stood up. Do not talk nonsense, child. Why do you take everything onto yourself? Thinking of everything they had silently paid for me over the years, my eyes reddened before I knew it. Nanny, I am now the Wang family's madam. From now on, I will also shoulder the Wang family's responsibilities. You and husband are both people I must protect. Nanny Gui's eyes also reddened. But our family has now offended the Kui family. What if they secretly make things difficult for us in the future? Nanny, I said, wiping her tears, husband is about to go to sea. If the Wang family cannot stand on its own, husband will forever be held in their grasp. Bai Weilan's father is Thousand Household Commander Bai. His reputation is not good. He is vicious and cruel, and he will also go to sea with the fleet. I am afraid that if he acts too ruthlessly, he will implicate husband. As soon as Nanny Gui heard that Wang Shen might be in danger, she grew even more anxious. The old woman's eyes brightened. She looked at me with admiration. Then tell me, how should this situation be broken? After thinking for a moment, I answered softly, if we do not want to join them in doing wrong, then the only way is to risk everything, cut ties with them completely, and force a way out. No matter what, we must pull husband away from the relationship between the Cui and Bai families. The old woman smiled kindly. You saved my life. That must mean fate brought us together. I wonder if I have the blessing to take you as my adopted daughter. I hesitated for a moment. In your family, is there anyone who has committed crimes or done evil? She shook her head. Is there anyone of improper conduct? She shook her head again. I smiled and looked at Nanny Gui. Seeing that she did not object, I knelt and kowtowed 3 times heavily. Adoptive mother above, please accept 3 bows from your daughter. She touched her wrist but unexpectedly found nothing there and said awkwardly, Daughter, I will make up the adoption gift later. I had not expected that today I had only made a sudden decision to inspect the shop, yet I accidentally saved a life and gained a mother-daughter bond. On the spot, I dismissed shopkeeper Wang and temporarily handed the management of Jinwan jewelry shop to the clever clerk. Relying on his seniority, shopkeeper Wang said that he had worked in Jinwan jewelry shop since old Master Wang's time and still intended to make trouble. Just then, a troop of officers came over. The official leading them immediately stepped forward to salute my adoptive mother and respectfully called, Old Madam. Only then did I learn that this plain-dressed adoptive mother was actually the birth mother of Commander Zhang, the commanding officer of the Taichung Guard. Nanny Gui was so frightened, she froze. I was also at a loss. I had not expected that the moment I gained an adoptive mother, I would gain the mother of the highest official in the locality. Shopkeeper Wang was so frightened that he immediately lost his nerve and from then on no longer dared to rely on his seniority. Adoptive mother promised me that after an auspicious day was chosen, she would receive me properly and formally recognize me as her adopted daughter. In less than a day, news that I had become the sworn younger sister of Commander Zhang spread everywhere. 3 days later, on the auspicious day, under the witness of Commander Zhang and many official madams, I formally became old Madame Zhang's adopted daughter. From then on, my reputation among the female relatives in the county grew greater and greater. I also became someone every family tried to befriend and please. A person's fate truly rises and falls in unpredictable ways. Whenever he had leave, Wang Shen would smile and say directly that he had married a wife worth 1,000 gold pieces. Late at night, after we had been intimate, he gently patted my back. Now that you have such a great backer, I can go to sea with more peace of mind. After weighing it in my heart, I finally spoke the words I had hidden there. Adoptive mother said that if you do not want to go to sea, Ah Yao. He held me in his arms. Going to sea is my own choice. A man should establish merit amid wind and waves. Understanding his choice, I could only support him. I held him tightly. Husband, no matter what difficulties you encounter, you must remember that at home, you have me and Nanny Gui. We are both waiting for you to return. Only when I saw him solemnly agree did my heart settle. The next day I was at home making shoes and socks for my husband, when a maid came in to report that Madame Cui had brought her son and daughter-in-law over. Wang Xian had already returned to the guard garrison and was not at home. Why had Madame Cui come? Nanny Gui gave a cold snort. A weasel visiting a hen never means well. Back when Master and Madame passed away, she was so busy she had no time to return. Why is she suddenly free to come back to her maiden family today? As a younger generation member, I had no choice but to go to the door to greet them. Madame Cui, and young Master Cui all looked somewhat stiff. Who would have expected that in just a few short days, the circumstances of all of us would change so completely? Madame Cui took a sip of tea and spoke politely. Ah Yao, please pass a message to Xian. The Cui family's goods no longer need him to worry about them. He only needs to focus on doing his work as a banner officer. I nodded and answered yes. Out of the corner of my eye, I glanced at Bai Weilan and saw that her face was haggard, with dark circles under her eyes. Cuiji's eyes were dull, his beard unshaven, and the faint smell of wine clung to him. In all the years I had been in the Cui family, I had never seen him in such a wretched state. Ah Yao, Madame Cui said in a softened voice. The Cui and Wang families are originally aunt and nephew. After Xian goes to sea, if anything happens at home, you may come to your aunt. Our two families should help each other. I only smiled and did not answer. The smile on her face immediately faded a little. Yao, last time, Commander Zhang's mother nearly had an accident in our restaurant. I have already dismissed the shopkeeper. It was all because he was blind and offended old Madame Zhang. Do you think you could help your aunt make an introduction so I can personally go apologize to old Madame Zhang? Looking into Madame Cui's eager eyes, I answered softly. Adoptive mother has a broad heart. That matter was not Madame's fault to begin with. She will not be angry with Madame. You child, she pretended to scold me, her face full of a false smile. You should follow Xian and call me aunt. Calling me Madame sounds too distant. Cuiji coughed lightly. Mother, back when Ah Yao brought good fortune to me through marriage, she once followed me in calling you mother. Did you not scold her for not understanding rank and propriety? The false smile on Madame Cui's face immediately froze. She could not bear to blame her son, so she fiercely glared at Bai Weilan instead. Bai Weilan was Thousand Household Commander Bai's treasured daughter. For a young lady from an official family like her to marry, Cuiji had already been a step down. She absolutely would not accept any grievance. Seeing her mother-in-law's gaze, she said nothing and left while holding her maid's hand. Cuiji also said he had other matters to attend to. He forced down his emotions and looked at me once before leaving too. Helpless, Madame Cui could only find herself a way out, saying that in a few days she would send an invitation for me to go flower viewing. After seeing them out through the main gate, I had just reached the bend when I heard them lower their voices and begin to quarrel. Madame Cui said, "Look at what kind of person you married. She shows me a sour face over the smallest thing. She knows the Cui family has offended Commander Zhang, yet her father does not even bother to help." Cuiji replied, "Mother, do you regret it now? Ah Yao brings prosperity to her husband and household. You married her away and as a result, she immediately became Commander Zhang's sworn younger sister. It is useless even if you are jealous. You were the one who sent away the Cui family's good fortune." I did not want to hear more of their blame and quarrels. My life now was full of hope. I still had many things to do. After that, Madame Cui sent Nanny Wang over again to act as a persuader. I received her properly, but still did not agree to serve as a bridge between the Cui and Zhang families. I never once accepted the invitations the Cui family sent. Once, when I went out to inspect a shop, I encountered Cuiji. He looked dispirited and absent-minded. His handsome, refined appearance from the past had been completely covered by decline. "Ah Yao, can you still draw floral patterns for the Cui family?" His eyes lit with hope. After a moment of silence, I answered, "No, it would not be convenient." "Ah Yao." He looked at me expectantly. "If I divorce Bai Weilan, can you return to my side? I will marry you again." I quietly lowered my eyes and had no intention of answering that question, because it no longer had any meaning. When I had given him all my sincerity and my whole heart, he had denied me, suppressed me, and slandered me. Now that I had resolutely left, he had finally awakened and wanted to make up for his regrets, wanted to rekindle the old affection. But what has been missed is missed forever. Although I was deeply reluctant to part from the days spent with Wang Xian, the day of separation finally arrived. On the day the fleet departed, drums and music shook the sky, and 9 ceremonial cannon shots thundered. Soldiers and civilians saw them off together. After the final rites of offering to the sea, expelling evil, and praying for blessings, The treasure fleet finally raised its sails and went out to sea. Every day, Nanny Gui and I prayed to the heavenly consort to protect the treasure fleet with favorable winds, and prayed that the gods would protect Wang Xian and bring him home safely. Whenever I missed Wang Xian, I wrote him a letter. Before I knew it, the small box used to hold letters had become a large chest. Day after day, in the blink of an eye, a year passed. Ever since a pair of boy-girl twins had been added to our household, Nanny Gui could not stop smiling all day. Ah Yao, you truly are the Wang family's great contributor. Young master still does not know you have given birth to a pair of twins for him. Outside the window, fine rain drifted down. Nanny Gui and I chatted while enjoying the view. I heard that the Cui family, relying on the power of thousand household commander Bai, had offended many people in the same trade, and their business was declining more and more. Bai Weilan had gone everywhere praying to gods and Buddhas, but even now she still had not become pregnant. Wang Yan had even secretly kept a mistress for Cui Zhi. I was astonished. They had only been married for 1 year. How had they become so anxious already? Nanny Gui laughed at their misfortune. Is it not because there is someone to compare with? You gave birth to 2 children, a son and a daughter all at once. Wang Yan is so jealous she is going mad. I froze for a moment, then laughed. It is enough to live one's own life well. What is the meaning of comparing back and forth? Keeping a mistress for her son, is that not a sign that the family is about to fall into chaos? Nanny Gui shook her head and sighed. Before Wang Yan married, she liked comparing herself with other madams. After marrying, she compared herself with other merchant wives. Then she compared sons, daughters-in-law, and everything else. The more she compared, the more chaotic her household became. The 9th day of the month was the day the heavenly consort achieved immortality and ascended. The twins were already half a year old. Adoptive mother told me to bring the 2 children to attend the grand ceremony. Along both banks of the harbor, masts stood densely, and sea vessels of every size were moored by the shore. The vermilion gates of the heavenly consort palace were wide open. Court officials, officers of every rank from the expedition fleet, merchants and common people by the harbor had all gathered for the ceremony. The master of ceremonies raised his voice to announce the rites. Drums and music rang out. The presiding priest held incense and knelt in worship, praising the heavenly consort's grace and asking the sea deity to protect the sea routes in peace. The surrounding common people also bowed their heads together to pray, murmuring their wishes. I prayed sincerely that the treasure fleet's journey would go smoothly, and that Wang Xian would return safely. After the ceremony ended, Nanny Gui and I each carried 1 child. As soon as I turned around, I saw Cui Ji staring at me in a daze. Beside him stood a woman who looked somewhat like me. She was probably the mistress his mother had found for him. Nanny Gui's face flushed red with anger. Ah Yao, Cui Ji blocked my way. If the person who had married me had been you, would these 2 children have been mine? I did not want to answer meaningless questions again and again. I walked past him with Nanny Gui and carried the 2 children to pay respects to adoptive mother. Young Master Kui used to look like a proper person. Who would have thought he would become more and more improper? Today, he even openly brought his mistress to show off during the heavenly consort ceremony. The madams beside adoptive mother all echoed one after another. The Gay and I exchanged a look. It seemed the Cui family's business would become even more difficult in the future. Ah Yao, quickly bring little dragon and little phoenix to me. Let me hold my 2 treasures. Adoptive mother hurriedly took out 2 jade-inlaid collars she had prepared and put them around the children's necks, making the 2 little ones laugh with her non-stop. The surrounding madams continued to flatter adoptive mother. Babies who laugh so brightly bring unending fortune and longevity. Old madam will certainly enjoy long-lasting blessings and a long life. Adoptive mother was overjoyed beyond measure and patted my hand lightly. It is all thanks to my daughter teaching them well. If she had not saved my life back then, I fear I would not have the blessing today to witness such a grand gathering at Heavenly Consort Palace. I answered sincerely, it is because adoptive mother's blessings are deep, and your fate is strong. Your destined life has not yet ended, and you still have many blessings ahead to enjoy. I truly hoped adoptive mother would always be healthy. Over the past year, she had cared for me greatly. The Wang family's business had also prospered more and more under her protection, moving as smoothly as a ship with favorable wind. That night, after coaxing the 2 children to sleep, I was also preparing to rest. Just then, a maid came in and reported, Nanny Wang from the Cui family has arrived. She says it is a matter of life and death. Hearing those words late at night, my heart suddenly shook. Nanny Wang entered, crying as she knelt. Ah Yao, please save the young master. I hurried to help her up and anxiously asked, What happened? Nanny Wang found it difficult to speak. Today, the young master took that mistress to the ceremony, and young madam caught them on the spot. No one knows how the three of them argued and fought, but afterward the young master was stepped on by a horse. I stared blankly. But I am not a doctor. Nanny Wang held my hand. Madam said you bring prosperity to your husband and household. Back then, when the young master was near death, it was you who saved him. Madam told me to come invite you over. Bah! Nanny Gui lifted the curtain and came in. Back then, it was Wang Yan who used sweet words to trick our madam into letting Yao go. Originally, she should have been the young lady of the Wang family. You people tricked her away and then made her a maidservant for so many years. Ungrateful people like you are not worth saving. Nanny Wang's old face flushed red with shame. Nanny, I have always been grateful for your care, but now I am already the Wang family's daughter-in-law and I also have young children. It truly is not convenient for me to return to the Cui family. Nanny Wang wiped the corners of her eyes. Yes, I understand your difficulty. I also know madam is making things hard for others. I ordered someone to take a lantern and send her back. That night, I did not sleep well. All night, I had strange dreams. When I woke the next morning, my head felt dizzy and heavy. Yet one after another, madams who had business dealings with us came to speak on the Cui family's behalf. Later, Madame Cui personally came with several other madams to invite me. In the end, I had no choice but to follow them to the Cui family to take a look. More than a year had passed, and I stepped once again into the Cui family home. Maidservants came and went in confusion. Some carried tea, others served pastries. Everything was chaotic and no longer as orderly as before. The flowers in the garden were also untended. Dry branches and withered leaves had not been cleared away. I sighed inwardly. The Cui family had already begun to show signs of decline. When we arrived at Cuiji's courtyard, Bai Weilan was beating and scolding a woman. You shameless wretch! Do you know who my father is? You dared become my husband's mistress. As long as I am alive, do not even think of becoming his concubine. Madame Cui hurriedly shouted, Bai Weilan, what madness are you making again? Beat her or kill her as you please, but do not affect Zhi's recovery. Was Madame Cui not the one who had found this mistress for her son? Why did she not protect that woman at all, and instead let Bai Weilan beat or kill her as she wished? My heart immediately turned cold. If I had become Cuiji's concubine back then, would the person being beaten and humiliated at will today have been me? After seeing me, Bai Weilan's eyes held both anger and bitterness. She clenched her fists tightly and turned into the room. She sat quietly on the couch, her eyes empty. Cuiji lay on the bed, his expression as if he no longer had any attachment to life. Ji, Yao is here. She has brought good fortune with her too. Your injuries will recover quickly. Madame Cui shook Cuiji's arm and told him to look at me. Yao. As soon as Cuiji saw me, he burst into tears like a wronged child. Why did you only come now? In the past, whenever I was sick, you always stayed awake all night to care for me. Yao, come closer. My leg was crushed by a horse. I will never stand again. I have become a cripple. Yao, you surely will not despise me, right? I dreamed cousin was eaten by a sea monster. He will never return again. Bring the children back. I will cast off Bai Weilan. I will marry you again. I will not despise you, all right? You are mad. You even dare curse your own cousin. I did not want to look any longer at that mad and jealous appearance. In anger, I turned and left. When I lifted the curtain and stepped outside, I saw Bai Weilan covering her face and sobbing. When a man's heart has changed, a woman's tears are the most useless thing. Behind me came Cuiji's painful roar. Yao! But my steps did not stop at all. Perhaps he had never loved me that much. It was only that the bird he had always held in his palm had suddenly flown away, and so he could not accept it. The carriage rocked gently. In my drowsiness, I seemed to return to the year I was 8. After Madame Cui brought me back, I met Cuiji for the first time. Cuiji was 4 years older than me. His face was sallow and haggard, his breathing faint as a thread as he lay stiffly on the bed. After that, under Nanny Wang's arrangements, I wore a wedding dress and bowed to heaven and earth with a rooster. I knew that from then on, I was Cuiji's bride for good fortune. Only if he survived could I survive. Day and night I prayed that the gods would bless Cuiji with health and safety, that medicine would arrive and illness would leave. Later, Cuiji's health did indeed improve day by day, while I became seriously ill from overexertion. After I recovered, Cuiji's old illness had completely disappeared. His brows were bright, and his appearance was extremely handsome. He said that as long as I was by his side, both his body and mind felt peaceful, and at night he could sleep soundly. He said that since we had bowed to heaven and earth, we should sleep in the same bed. For the first 2 years we slept in the same bed. Madame Cui affectionately called me Yao the lucky star. Everyone around us respectfully called me young mistress. My prayers day and night seemed to have turned into the prosperity of the Tsui family's business. Later, after Tsuiji entered the academy and came into contact with more books and a wider world, he began to despise me. The Tsui family's business grew more prosperous, the residents became more exquisite, and the people Tsuiji associated with became increasingly noble. The more the Tsui family prospered, the more Madame disliked me, and the more Tsuiji came to loathe me. Madame scolded me for having a heart higher than the sky and forgetting my status. The young master scolded me as crude and unfit for refined places. I became the ten-tail wife in the mouths of the maidservants. One night I woke in the middle of the night and even heard Nanny Wang talking in her sleep. Madam, young master, one must not forget one's roots. The two of you must treat Ah Yao well. Nanny did not know that for someone like me, who had experienced hunger and cold, having enough to eat and clothes to wear was already what I longed for. To be able to walk cleanly out of that man-eating Chunfeng house and become a maidservant was already enough to satisfy me. Later, Tsuiji repeatedly mentioned wanting to take me as a concubine, but I would rather remain a maidservant than become a concubine. Tsuiji liked to suppress me. In particular, he liked to belittle me in front of others. One snowy day, I brought a thick cloak to the academy for Tsuiji. His classmates praised me as gentle and beautiful, but he glanced at me with contempt. Just a clumsy, crude girl, not worth mentioning. To punish me, he made me walk home alone through the snow. All along the road I kept thinking and still could not figure out what I had done wrong. Because I returned home late, I made Tsuiji angry again. Madame Tsui punished me by making me kneel in the snow for 4 hours. After Tsuiji learned about it, he rushed into the servants' room and pointed at me while shouting, "Ah Yao, are you stupid? Did you not know to hire a carriage home? When my mother punished you, did you not know to send someone to tell me?" His eyes were red as he looked at my swollen knees. "Ah Yao, from now on, you are not allowed to bring things to the academy for me, and you are not allowed to come pick me up either." After saying that, he took out ointment and roughly applied it to my knees. My knees hurt very much, but my heart hurt even more. The carriage jolted, and I suddenly woke from the dream. The heartache still had not faded. Those shadows of the past made me think of Wang Xian again. I did not know when he would return. As soon as I returned home, the sound of Nanny Gui teasing the two children immediately lifted my mood. The Wang family's business became more and more prosperous, and its wealth steadily grew. I then wanted to do something more for poor women who had no one to rely on. After Nanny Gui learned of my idea, she greatly approved. The female beggars wandering the streets, the women who had no home to return to, and those who wanted to learn a skill to make a living. I gathered them all into the charity hall I built in the suburbs. The experienced masters from the shops were also very willing to teach them skills. Some learned weaving, embroidery, cooking, midwifery, or using the abacus. Every one of them studied very diligently. Being able to contribute a small bit of strength to help them escape hardship and regain hope for life made my heart feel peaceful and comforted. It was like back then when Madame Wang had saved me from Chunfeng House. Only then could I become the Ah Yao of today. Time passed in a flash. When the boy-girl twins had already begun running everywhere and making mischief, Wang Xian had been at sea for more than 2 years. Recently, the harbor had been extremely lively. The fishermen who knew the sea routes and sea weather well all said the treasure ships were probably about to return. The husband I had longed for over 2 years was finally about to come home. I could no longer hold back. Holding Wang Xian's old clothes, my tears fell in streams and countless emotions surged in my heart, joy mixed with long-buried longing. One noon, after I had just coaxed the 2 children to sleep, drowsiness also swept over me and I fell asleep. In my dream, I suddenly felt as if an entire mountain were pressing down on me. When I was woken by a kiss, I saw a man whose skin had darkened and whose body had grown much thinner. His face was full of gentle longing. I thought I was meeting him again in a dream and cried from joy, reaching out to gently trace every line of his face. Suddenly, my finger was taken into his mouth. I was startled. Immediately afterward, my surprised cry was swallowed by his kiss. After we had been intimate, I touched the scars on his back, and my eyes reddened again. Ah Yao, I earned considerable merit while escorting the fleet. My superior has already submitted my name to the court. It is very possible I will be granted the hereditary post of 100 household commander. I have established myself now. I can protect my Ah Yao. I swear I will never again let anyone casually take you away from my side. I hugged the man who had built his achievements for me. I only hope you are safe and sound. Husband, I only need you to be healthy. I lay in his arms listening as he told me strange and fascinating things about the sea and foreign countries. He also listened as I told him about the business of the shops and the events that had happened in Taichung. Suddenly I remembered the two children and immediately sat up. Husband, have you met the children? They were sleeping with me just now. He lightly touched the bridge of his nose, unable to hide a bit of guilt. I have. At one glance I knew both children were mine. Our daughter resembles you, and our son resembles me. I gave a soft snort. Did husband look carefully? Everyone says our daughter resembles you, and our son resembles me. He laughed awkwardly. Still, Yao is the most capable. In one go, you gave me both a son and a daughter. After teasing me, he gently kissed my forehead. You worked hard. Yao, it must have hurt a great deal then, did it not? How could it not have hurt? Perhaps when one becomes a mother, one becomes strong. After seeing the two children, all pain seemed as if it could be forgotten. Outside the door came Nanny Gui's voice coaxing the two children. Wang Xian and I looked at each other and smiled, then hurriedly dressed and went outside. He picked up our daughter. The little girl was usually rather cautious with strangers, yet she did not cry or fuss at all. Indeed, blood ties carried an instinctive bond. During these few days of leave at home, the two children clung to him constantly. The courtyard was always filled with the happy laughter of father and children. The refined and handsome man from years ago had now also become a kind father. As soon as the decree appointing Wang Xian as a hereditary 100 household commander was issued, Madame Cui hurried over. Fine rain was falling. Half her body had been drenched by the rain, making her look extremely miserable. Wang Xian brought her into the study. Before long, her sobbing voice came from inside. Xian, we are one family. Can you not think of a way to help? When she stepped out of the study, she seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant, and even her back had bent. She looked at me with a bleak smile. Yao, if I had let you marry Ji back then, your fate of bringing prosperity to your husband and household would surely have helped the Cui family flourish forever. It is all my fault. I harmed the Cui family and harmed Ji too. She repeated, I was wrong, over and over, then staggered away. There is cause, and there is consequence. In this world, not everything can be forgiven with a single sentence of I was wrong. Wang Xian lowered his head and gently wiped the treasured sword in his hand. Yao, 1,000 household commander Bai's household is about to have its property confiscated. The Cui family's business has also been implicated. But I do not want to help the Cui family. I gently smoothed the crease between his brows. If you do not want to help, then do not help. Husband has done nothing wrong. If resentment is repaid with kindness, then how should kindness itself be repaid? Wang Xian looked at the curtain of rain outside the window and smiled faintly. Even now she still does not understand. Yao, what makes others treat you sincerely has never been some so-called fate of bringing prosperity to your husband and household. He turned around, his gaze gentle as water, then took a bright yellow imperial edict from a box. Now you are specially granted the hereditary post of 100 household commander of the proper 6th rank. Your wife, Lady Chen, is virtuous, gentle, cautious and skillful in assisting the household. She is specially granted the title of honored lady in recognition of her merit in managing the inner household. May you both continue to be loyal and diligent, forever serving our command. Nanny Wang's side story. After Madame and the young master grew tired of Yao, I could not bear to see her bullied by the other maidservants, so I told her to live in the same room as me. She was a girl who knew gratitude. After she moved in, I was the one who truly benefited. When I was thirsty, she poured me water. When I was tired, she massaged my shoulders. Whenever I changed out of my clothes, she always washed them right away. I could not help sighing. Such a good girl had been terribly harmed by Madame. Originally she could have become the Wang family's treasured young lady, deeply treasured, but Madame coaxed her away. After her value had been used up, she could only become an ordinary maidservant. The young master's temper was hot and cold. Today, if he treated Yao well, he would reward her with much jewelry. Tomorrow, if she did not please his eye, he would mock, belittle, and smear her. Every time the young master said he wanted to take Yao as a concubine, she would secretly cry. Fortunately, young Master Wang had always remembered Yao. To marry her, he agreed to many harsh conditions from Madame. Madame thought herself clever. She had both driven Yao away and gained young Master Wang's help. How could she have expected that the young master truly loved Yao? Only he himself had never realized it. The daughter of a 1,000 household commander, whom Madame exhausted every thought to marry into the family, was arrogant and overbearing. At home she did not respect her mother-in-law or her husband. Outside she was domineering and acted outrageously. Only then did the young master clearly understand his feelings for Yao. Unfortunately, Yao had already become the lawful wife of the Wang family. Seeing the young master drown his sorrows in wine every day, Madame found a girl who somewhat resembled Yao and made her his mistress. Madame was truly muddle-headed. Was keeping a mistress for her son not the beginning of family chaos? When young Madame learned of it, she refused to let it go and made a scene right at the heavenly consort ceremony. In the chaos, the young master was trampled by a frightened horse and ruined his leg. The doctor said the young master's leg was crippled. Yet Mam still hoped to borrow Ayao's blessing to protect the young master. Luckily, Ayao did not soften because of old feelings and refused the young master. Misfortunes never come alone. After the treasure ships returned, the Kui family's in-law caused a great disaster in a foreign country. As soon as he returned to our land, he was imprisoned, and his property was confiscated. The Kui family's business was also implicated. The large estate and the shops were all gone. The servants were all dismissed, including me. Madame made the decision to divorce Bai Weilan, then took the paralyzed young master back to their ancestral home. As for me, Ayao received me into the Wang family. She said I could live there in peace, and that she would support me until the end of my life. Later, at Ayao's charity hall, I met Bai Weilan again. She wore plain cloth, her face bare of makeup, and was learning embroidery. She had become gentle and peaceful, relying on her own hands to support herself. Wang Xian's side story. When I went to a temple fair, I was taken by child abductors. Later, I seized a chance to escape to Chunfeng House, and luckily met Ayao. She hid me in the woodshed. When my parents learned that Ayao had saved me, they used 10 taels of silver to redeem her. At that time, her body was covered in injuries, and she was so hungry she was nothing but skin and bones. My mother was deeply heartbroken and wanted to take her as a daughter. I also pitied her and swore that I would be her elder brother, cherishing and protecting her all my life. I carefully applied medicine for her and tried to make her laugh. But she was only my younger sister for 2 days before my aunt tricked her away. I was unwilling and wanted to bring Ayao back, but my aunt would not agree and even used the Wang family's business to threaten me. Afterward, my father fell gravely ill, and every day I ran back and forth between the pharmacy and the shops. Once I saw Cuiji taking Ayao to shop in a jewelry store. Whatever Ayao liked, Cuiji bought for her. As long as Ayao lived well, whether she was my younger sister or not no longer mattered. After my father died, my mother also fell ill. My aunt used the excuse of helping my mother manage the business to seize several Wang family shops, as well as the shops that belonged to my mother's dowry, so that aunt would treat Ayao well. My mother said those things were only material possessions. Ill as she was, she took me back to her maiden family. Not long after, my mother also passed away. Nanny Gui brought me to depend on my maternal family, and I desperately studied literature and practiced martial arts. Later, I saved an official. He held the post of banner officer in the guard garrison and lived alone with no family. After everything was arranged, I became his adopted son. He was badly wounded during a voyage to eliminate pirates and ultimately did not survive. I inherited his post as banner officer. When I returned, I learned that Ayao was not living well. My aunt repaid kindness with enmity, made her a maidservant, allowed Cuiji to humiliate her, and even wanted to take her as a concubine. I used a plan to take back the Wang family shops and my mother's dowry shops, while also reaching an agreement with my aunt. I wanted to protect Ayao forever. I wanted the rest of her life to be free of worry. Therefore, I had to marry her. On the day we married, I handed all my property to her. I knew the time I could spend with Ayao would not be much. But in order to have enough ability to protect her later, I had to follow the treasure ships to sea and establish merit. During that time, Cuiji came to find me many times. He brought the jewelry and small objects Ayao had left at the Cui family. I quietly gave all of them to poor families in the outskirts. I knew he regretted it. A good girl like Ayao had been failed by him. By then, the past could only be remembered with regret. The only pity was that back then, we had all been too blind to understand. He once cast away his pride, knelt at my feet, and cried until his face was a mess. "Cousin, please. Ayao was originally my wife. I love her. I cannot live without her. Cousin, please return Ayao to me." But Ayao is my wife. I love her and respect her. How could I give her to someone else? They once despised her and called her the 10-tail wife. I swore that I would let Ayao stand in a high place, so they could only look up at her, respect her, and fear her. Because of her kindness, Ayao saved the old madam of Commander Zong's family, and became Commander Zong's sworn younger sister. I was very happy. Ayao had gained someone to rely on, but as her husband I also had to work hard. I had to rely on myself to win Ayao an official title. Ayao is my wife worth 1,000 gold pieces.